Oh wait. And their sound. Their sound. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm going to have to just redo that entire beginning bit. Why don't we? So, hello and welcome everyone to the Ladder's finest tournament. I think it's the Ranked Champions tournament, where the top players of my ranked ladder, where you can find below, will be playing against each other in a top 8 tournament. Bracket in front of you is sadly final, so there is going to be a bit of an ODM civil war. I'll shuffle it next time, but nevertheless, that's going to be it. And yeah, as soon as I find a game, we will be jumping on in. All right, wonderful. Since you came back, you only got another ODM first round. Oh dear. Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. This tournament does have 3 ODM players today though, so seems pretty likely that you would run into at least one of them. Hello, Esben. Nice to have you in chat. And yeah, right now I'm just keeping an eye out for them lobbies. If anyone is playing in the tournament today, you want me to cast your games, then feel free to let me know in chat and I'll jump on in. But yeah, should be pretty good for anyone wondering about the Silver to Bronze tournament that's being cast by Human Boy right now as we speak. And yeah, I think that about covers everything. At this point, if you want to skip ahead in the timeline, you can feel free to go ahead and watch the games if you are in the VOD. If you're watching live, well, sadly, I don't think there's much you can do. All right, and here we go. Game number 1. Gonna be Bowmore versus Chosen One. All right, nice. Hey. So this should be pretty exciting. Chosen One of my very own clanmates, Skaven Enjoyer, possibly even main, but I don't see them playing it too often. As for Bowmore, one of my mods in chat, we'll see if their moderation skills match up to their gameplay today. All right, let's see. ODM. Chosen One. There we go. All right. If you told me about scheduling on top of SC2, look, there's SC2 all the time, man. I can't dodge it. Speaking of, the Turin is actually streaming Age of Empires right now. Completely unrelated to Warhammer, but I'm totally going to be playing that later today, if possible. For now, though, the focus is going to be on the tournament, and starting off in round number 1 for the players. We got Bowmore and Chosen One. Just having a friendly conversation in chat. The map is set. I think I need to take another screenshot of this real quick so that we have, you know, the proper maps. A strange thing about Challenge, it actually sort of it shuffles the maps really weirdly. So if you have 4 rounds, the maps in the finals will get cut off once you remove players. It's really weird. It's like the maps are left oriented. Very strange. I guess it sort of makes sense, but there you go. Am I going to stream all matches? I'm going to be streaming as many matches as I can, but typically for these types of tournaments, I don't have the players waiting for me except for the finals. The reason for this is so that they don't have to be waiting around too long for matches to catch up. Just a nice thing so that during these weekday tournaments, no one has to stay up too late. Bowmore represents the Gold League, indeed. And by the way, for anyone who does not know about the ladder, I don't know how you wouldn't if you are watching this stream, but yeah, we do have leagues now. So I believe Chosen One is in Masters or Diamond. Let's see here. I have no idea what the easiest way to check someone's league is, aside from if it shows them online, but I think between Masters and Diamond is very likely. Bowmore coming in as the Gold League player, so we would expect Chosen One to do better here. But We'll have to see how they actually stack up in a tournament setting. Bowmore going for the Wood Elf pick, banning the Greenskins and Bretonia. Very, very standard picks for Wood Elves, and fairly nice map for the Wood Elves too. You can see over here, it's going to be Storm Demon. Storm Demon in extremely large map with small deployment zones. With your vanguarding, you can get quite a bit of a good advantage with them Wood Elves. Meanwhile, Chosen One deciding which faction they will play. We will see in just a second, hopefully. Hopefully. So, one thing that I was thinking about for this video, because audio was dead for a good first minute of the stream, I will very likely be trying to edit the video to trim out that muted section. I've never done it before, but I think when I do that, it makes like a whole new video. It's very strange for YouTube. So if you see this posted twice, you'll know that I done goofed it up. But hopefully all of that goes well. And Chosen One going for Chaos. So Chaos right now, a fairly strong faction in the meta. Surprisingly enough, they have not gotten a whole ton of buffs, except for the dreaded Sigvald changes that gave him a whole ton of mass and a whole ton of sustainability. Actually, quite tanky, comparable to Sartorial, maybe even tankier, which makes him an absolute beast on the battlefield, especially in a kite situation. Alternatively, Chosen One could also go Sartorial, a very good choice with his missile resist. You hope more players use the ladder, throwing everything at J Phoenix and can't win once. Yeah, the hope is we do have a full-on we do have a full ladder relaunch coming in this weekend with like 10 different streamers that will be streaming on it. I'm very excited about it, since recently the ladder has seen a fairly good resurgence. I'll see if I can bring that up actually. I don't want to change the screen blocker right now just in case I accidentally reveal any builds, but yeah, the ladder has actually seen a good uptick in players, almost back to the old its old glory actually. Not its golden age, but seeing like, 20, 30 games a day. Quite nice indeed. A Chosen One is ready. Bowmore also ready. Should be an exciting match, and while we load on in, I'll see if I can find this darn graph. Let's see here. I bring up this graph so often. I actually wrote some code just specifically to bring up this graph for me. Let's go ahead and open it up. There we go. And yeah, there we go. So that's the player graph. Ignore the last bar there. That's just tracking the games that have been played today. But yeah, there you go. You can see it is beginning to uptick. And I think with a little bit more support, we should be able to climb back to hopefully even 100 players a day. But for now we'll have to settle with what we got. Now for the armies of both players today, and I will have to change my controls as I am a very professional tournament host. We have the Wood Elves and the Chaos coming in. For the Wood Elves, we got a Spellweaver of high magic. Sorry, let me just close this. Go. We got a Spellweaver of high magic coming in with Soul Quench, very good for sniping targets. This mostly for Hell Cannons, I would presume, and a Spellsinger of Beasts with the just with an Amber Spear. Now that's an interesting pick. I would imagine that the Soul Quench would already be able to take out most targets, but perhaps the combination of two could kill Hell Cannons quite quickly. For the Wood Elf infantry, we are seeing Wildwood Rangers, Blade Singers even, and a good amount of Wild Rider cavalry. Very much a front-facing, straight-up Wood Elf army. They'll be trying to win the infantry engagement against the Chaos forces. that have a Chaos Sorcerer of Death, Spirit Leech, amazing against cavalry. And I believe Doom and Darkness is what it's called. Should give, yes, Fear and Terror, a very nice ability. The army does not have a lot of terror, which is this army in this case. And Burning Head, which is quite amazing versus Wood Elves in general and their low armor. Now the Chaos Infantry is about medium tier as far as infantry is concerned. Lots of Chaos Warriors, Mirror Guard, and the dreaded Armored Chaos Trolls, Stone Trolls that are slightly worse to be honest, although a little bit cheaper, and a front line of Chaos Marauders. Now, to actually kill the elite infantry of the Wood Elves, these Chaos Trolls are going to have their work cut out for them. If they manage to stay in combat for long enough, they should be able to get pretty good damage, but I don't know if they will be able to survive. I guess for the forces of the Wood Elves, there aren't many range tools to actually take out the trolls, though it's pretty likely that they will be able to get in some pretty good damage. They do really want to be fighting elite infantry though, and not spears. Now right off the bat, for the skirmish phase today, we are seeing the Marauder Horsemen moving on up, and they're going to be poking away at the Wildwood Rangers, getting in some pretty nice damage right off the bat. Some good luck, have fun's being thrown out. And the cavalry moves in to try and push back the Marauder Horsemen. But the main problem for the Wood Elves right now, and we are seeing a bit of a switch in roles. The Chaos player is actually kiting the Wood Elves here, strangely enough. Just shooting at their cavalry and getting in quite a bit of value while the Wood Elves try to advance. All in all, I would say a pretty good advantage for the Chaos player. A bit of damage did land on the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire and actually on the Death Wizard too, but the fact that there's two of them make them quite a bit harder to snipe out. A lot of magic would have to be committed to that, and the single unit of Hawk Riders trying to out-skirmish the rest of the Chaos Force as well, they're not going to be doing that much. The Marauder Horsemen just getting in way too much damage over there. Now, good Amber Spear does drop, followed by another sniping ability, the Soul Quench. Hits the infantry, gets good damage. But honestly, I don't think it's going to be enough for the Wood Elves. They are getting massively out-traded here from the skirmishers. And unless they are able to find an advantageous engagement with their cavalry, I'm not sure it's going to do too well, as Chaos now actually opting for the fight against the Wood Elves, going in for the Burning Heads, and it looks like that's going to be annihilating those Blade Singers, their HP dropping to about 10% after that. The casters for the Wood Elves too fly up above, taking a bit of damage from the Marauder Horsemen. And here we go on the left flank. The Wood Elf Cavalry is going to be trying to make a play. And boy oh boy do they need to do so quickly, because that front line is collapsing rather quickly. Chosen One, the nice play here with the infantry blocking any cavalry engagements, making sure that they can't get too close. And there we go, the Spirit Leech actually dropping on the Wild Riders. They'll be taking out 7 models, as you all know from my tutorial series. Now, Chaos is quite grouped up here, so the Wild Riders do get a fairly nice charge, blocked up only by the Mirror Guard over here, and I think the Mirror Guard tanking that charge will be able to win it for the Wood Elves here. Balance of power now going heavily in the favor of Chaos, and if you take stock of the actual armies here, going to be just a couple units of cavalry left. Another Burning Head annihilating those Blade Singers. I fear to look at the value of that Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, because they probably got at least 1,000 value with those 2 Burning Heads. Wood Elves now trying to take back into the air. Ammunition is going to be too low to take out all of these Chaos Warriors, and I would expect the game to end in a bit. So now we sit back, relax, and look at chat, I guess. The Wood Elf player though, Bowmore, definitely scrapping it out. The sniping attempts did work out fairly well against the Chaos Sorcerers, but the engagement just happened a little bit too quickly for the sniping to actually pay off. Most of the Winds of Magic was used, and this is why you do see 2 casters very often with Chaos. It makes sure that they do not get sniped out, and that you'll be able to use all of your winds of magic. Alright, and I think in chat, there we go, GG is called. The Wood Elves will be tapping out. That means that we will be moving on to game number 2, the match today. Let's go ahead and get back the good old screen blocker, why don't we? And take a quick look at some values here. Spirit Leecher getting 500 gold value off of, I presume, 2 Spirit Leeches. Not too bad, maybe 3. The Burning Headcaster, though, with 1,000 gold. Really pays off for the 2 sorcerers there. Just barely. Excuse me, just barely, though. Sigvald didn't really do too much, but the real heroes are the Marauder Horsemen. You want to really make sure you have enough counter skirmish. Otherwise, your build is going to be a little bit risky. There we go. On to game number 2. That's Chosen One. Taking a very fast first victory. Now we'll get to see what they decide to go for next. Any tip on when to rotate the infantry like Chaos just did? The general idea is you rotate your infantry if you have the more mobile force and if you want to stall the battle for longer. That's generally what rotating will do. You're also denying a flank, so if you're flank overloading, that's another reason to go for a bit of a rotation. But in this case, it was more of just it was a bit of both. The flank overload in the Marauder Horsemen was where the strength of the Chaos player was. And as Sun Tzu said, something avoid the strong point of your enemy. And using the mobility, Chosen One could take the engagement with his much more mobile horsemen. That's a theory of it, at least, and we saw it demonstrated quite wonderfully today. In this first match. So pretty good, pretty good. Now the next map is set. It's going to be Cliff of Beasts, a very large flat map too. Very nice for a variety of factions, as actually most factions would benefit from a large open map. It's more so a few factions really don't want to get cheesed on smaller maps. So this should be a fairly stress-free pick from Chosen One. Alright, and Chosen One goes for the BRB. So now we get to wait while Chosen One tries to reconnect. I think the map might not have loaded, unfortunately, but they should be back in just a second. Meantime, tournament stream brought to you by water. Stay hydrated, guys. Of course, it's also been brought to you today by the Patreon, but you know, we'll cover that at the end of the video. All right, there we go. Yep, I think so. I think so. All right, and Chosen One does re-log in. Should be pretty good. He goes for the Skaven pick, banning Chaos and Beastmen. Skaven, one of Chosen One's most favorite faction. They have practiced them quite a bit, but I am wondering if they are worried about the many different counters to Skaven. One very good point is that Wood Elves has been played, and Wood Elves have been a bit of a problem for Skaven as of late, since the Sisters of Twilight update. So the fact that it has been played already gives Chosen One a fairly nice pick here. Whether or not it will be a hard counter, we will have to see. Vampire counts, a very standard pick for Skaven when you see these types of bans, but Chosen One already ready with the build. They did not even have to look it up, predicting the counts pick. Now it's going to come down though to whether or not Chosen One's hubris, I think may be the right word, actually bites them in the butt. Pentalonade coming in chat. Hello, welcome. Hopefully the day's going well for you. I'm pretty excited to be casting tournaments once again with actually fairly sizable prize pools now. We've moved up from the standard $5 prize, and it seems like that has been able to attract some pretty high level players, mostly those from ODM though, that are after the donated money. Still though, very exciting, and it should result in some fairly close games today. Now, for the matchup in particular, Vampire Counts versus Skaven. A lot of people do say it is Counts favored, and that is because Skaven, with their very low leadership, do not work very well in the grind. As their stamina lowers, they generally lose out on a ton of their leadership and start routing off by the dozens. It's very bad for the Skaven, especially on such a large open map like this. Although it is good for their artillery pieces, Skaven, they generally have to be a tiny bit worried that they'll get surrounded and slowly scab-scrapped to death. For the Vampire Counts, they have to mostly worry about getting their very expensive tools sniped out. So we'll see if Bowmore here is able to execute the build correctly. For his Lord, we got a Necrarch. Pretty uncommon here for the Vampire Count. He comes in with damage resistant melee defense. Fairly nice if he's going into combat. With Raised Dead, healing, and of course Spirit Leech. It's amazing against Skaven. You use it to snipe out the very low HP Lords. Necromancer coming in as a mana battery. You can see his abilities down below. And the White King, of course, for Scab-Scrap. Very cheap infantry line with only 2 units of Graveguard. And the main killers here are going to be the 2 Vargulfs going in for the snipes. For Chosen One, going in for the lengthwise army positioning instead of the line in the back strategy for deployment. Going to be coming in with a Warp Lightning Cannon and a nice group of Skaven Slaves. Counting the Undead too. Going to be seeing actually both armies fairly evenly sized with a whole ton of chaff. And man oh man does Chosen One have a lot of chaff. A ton of Clan Rats, the Council Guard, more elite, which will be able to hold against the Graveguard, Rat Ogres, very standard for mass, and but 2 Rattling Guns to shut down the Vampire Count flying. Of course, the Ikit Zazap Cannon is going to be great too, and I would presume there is an air net on the Warlock Engineer, and indeed there is at the bottom left. For the caster, main lord, is going to be Skrolk coming in mostly as a Clan Rat summoner. So this build here relies pretty heavily on the front line winning. Not too hard since there are Council Guard and Rat Ogres, but in general that's going to be the hope for the Skaven here. Mostly shutting down the Vampire Count's melee support, that being the Vargulfs and the Dragon. We'll have to see how it actually plays out. Are Rattling Gunners viable in multiplayer? They are pretty good, but definitely don't take them en masse. About 1 or 2, like we see here for Chosen One, is about how many you want to actually run. Rat Ogre is actually in the very far back here. Not sure why these guys are here. Perhaps to bait out some cavalry for the Rat Gunners? Well, we'll have to see how that goes. Now, for the Vampire Counts, it is going to be a little bit of a tricky box to actually break down. The Rattling Gunners, see their range here, make a little bit of an oval that is a no-fly zone for the Vampire Counts. And accounting for that, they will have to try to find out a way to break into the box, since their infantry alone will not really be able to push in. Good luck, have fun getting called by both players, and the battle begins. Now, alternatively, the Vampire Counts could go for a hard rush, going for the mad dive on top of the Rattling Guns. There are 2 units of Fellbats here that could possibly do that. Moving in along this flank here means that this Rattling Gun won't really be able to get in a lot of damage in general. It won't be able to fire until about to this line of Clan Rats. That could be a pretty good option to take. Chosen One, not reorganizing the Rattling Guns too, will give a slight advantage to Bowmore with this flank overload. Still though, the time is... there's still a lot of time before the main engagement gets on. And actually, we are seeing the Warp Lightning Cannon retarget onto the Fellbats. Not a bad choice, since the Fellbats are fairly scary against all this range. Warp Lightning Cannon, a quick retarget too onto the Dragon Lord, actually nailed it with 2 hits. is pretty nice. Gets in a few hundred damage. And overall, I'd say Skaven is trading quite well. Squolk does eat a Spirit Leech though, and that's going to be pretty brutal for him. For some reason you really want the Fanta Lemonade? Is it something I said, or is this just off the cuff moment? Anyways, immediately right off the bat, Squolk takes a pretty hefty beating from that Spirit Leech. You can see actually taking 1,000 damage. Oh my gosh, wait, that's a lot of damage. 1,000 divided by 130. Yeah, he took like 7 ticks of Spirit Leech, basically the full shebang. I'm not sure if that was the second Spirit Leech that dropped on him, but actually pretty unlucky for Chosen One, as the Skaven Lord is extremely important to keep alive. Meanwhile, the vampire counts slowly advancing, creeping along towards the Skaven, while the Lord continues to get fairly nice damage. Warp Lightning Cannons being dodged pretty proficiently, and the Fell Bats are more or less just hanging out in the back. The battle continues, and even though Squolk has taken a good amount of damage, the Vampire Count's Lord has actually taken a bit of a beating too, not to mention he can't cast spells every time he gets hit by the Warp Lightning Cannon, so that's actually been able to keep Squolk at fairly high HP than he otherwise would be. I would imagine another Spirit Leech should have dropped in on him. Actually, the percentage health being very even between Squolk and the Dragon Lord, it's going to be quite brutal for Squolk indeed. Now, when the Heck does drop on the Dragon Lord, he will be healing back to more or less full, and the battle will finally begin. Crypt Ghouls along the flanks don't have too much to worry about really. The Fell Bats continue to move into the back. Now we will switch over to the Vampire Count's perspective so that we can catch a little bit more of the battlefield. Squolk still has not eaten another Spirit Leech yet, and the Rattling Guns begin firing. So this is one opportunity to engage, since they will be reloading. Potentially the Fell Bats could jump in on top of them, but timing is oh so important. If they go in too early, well, they'll probably just die to Rat Ogres. Game is giving you the glacial pace you crave for Warhammer multiplayer indeed, and such is the way with most Vampire Counts matches. It's very, very slow and methodical. Another Spirit Leech drops onto Squolk, and the battle begins. 2 Vargulfs coming in for the snipe on the Warlock Engineer. They're knocking him down so that the Dragon Lord does not get sniped. One of the Fell Bats does crumble away a little bit early. That's going to be a really nice advantage for Chosen One. Start off the battle. Spirit Leech, second one, getting very little damage on Squolk actually, only a couple ticks to make up for the 7 that we saw earlier. And the Dragon Lord does have to disengage, lest he get completely gunned down by these Rattling Guns. Huge volley drops onto the Vargulf, actually mostly missing here, getting a surprisingly low amount of damage on him. Actually, a lot of those shots are shooting above him. Not sure exactly why, but there you go. Now most of the shots are actually landing, and although a zombie summon does drop, it does not dump on top of the Rattling Guns. The front line, however, is beginning to crumble for the Skaven. Crypt Ghouls are very good at grinding down infantry, and it looks like the left flank is going to be the first to collapse. But much more importantly, the Dragon Lord flies a little bit too close to the sun, gets netted down by the caster of the Skaven, and eats a good 3 volleys from the Rattling Guns plus the Warp Lightning Cannon. He's gonna be giving a lot of value to these Rattling Guns as he gets completely and utterly nuked. Definitely taking probably some spells from Squolk too. And just like that, with a single misplay, the Dragon Lord falls and hits the ground hard. He's gonna be off the battlefield, which is a very nice lead for the Skaven, but it's not completely over yet. Although one of the Vargulfs does get completely disintegrated, actually getting pushed into army loss levels of leadership because of Squolk's leadership debuff. And the other one actually has to disengage. Squolk coming out on top, still above half HP, is looking very comfortable here. I would say Skaven definitely have quite the advantage, and although their lines have finally crumbled away, I'm wondering if the Counts have enough to kill off the Rat Ogres and the ever-dreaded Council Guard. They're extremely high armor and HP. Another Rattling Gun volley comes down on the other Vargulf. It doesn't take too much damage. surprisingly enough, a lot of the Vargals have done quite well for themselves. And one of the Rat Ogres does Terror Rout. The main problem, though, is that there's nothing actually to chase them off, and they immediately re-rally going to battle in a bit. Warp Lightning Cannon is going to be running out of ammunition now, which is a very good sign when it comes to the Skaven. Being able to use all of your guns. Stab Scrap hits the Council Guard, but doesn't get too much damage on their very high armor. And the Focus Fire continues on the Vargal. Meanwhile, Skrull doing good work on the Necromancer, but he is getting dueled by the White King. He might actually fall here if Chosen One is not too careful, but it might not still matter too much. He even pulls Skrull back to the safety of the Council Guard, and that more or less assures his safety. Vargulf now getting beaten on by the Rat Ogres. Very likely will be going down. Getting slowed by the Rattling Guns too means that there's no way it will be able to find escape. And there we go. I think GG is called by Bowmore. And that's going to be the second win for Chosen One. There we go. Moving on up into the bracket. See here, the Vampire Count's Lord not able to get close for the entire battle. He did manage to get some pretty good Spirit Leeches on Skrulk, but the Warp Lightning Cannon coming on in with the 2,000 gold value, completely shutting him down for the entire battle. Very, very nice pick there. As for the Rat Ogres, they did their job, getting in some nice damage, and the Rattling Guns doing amazing too in this battle. Honestly, it all seemed to have worked out quite well for the Skaven. That's going to be it for this best of 3. Moving on to the next one. Duking for 5 minutes and gone in 1, indeed. Although that Lord did take quite a bit of damage from the from the Warp Lightning Cannon early on. I think a couple more shots probably could have been dodged, but nevertheless, that huge nuking really was a full HP to 0 type of play. Gonna steal that build? It seems pretty good. Essentially, just have to make sure that don't get too overwhelmed by the Vampire Count's forces, but with some good targeting of the Warp Lightning Cannon, you should be in a fairly good place. And Chosen One in chat, well played, man, well played. Now, for the next match that we're going to be jumping into, we got Zyphos playing in the tournament today, but they are currently in the game. We'll have to see if we can find them there. Oh, I see. They're up against Call Harmon, actually an ODM civil war going on in front of us. Can we find another one? There is Swar versus the green one. Let's see if we can find that. And hopefully we'll be able to see how the game goes. If they're in their ace match, then we should be able to follow this and then follow the winner, Chosen One. Hey, is this best of 3 done? So if this best of 3 is done, we can immediately jump into the winner against Chosen One. And it's going to be 1-0. Wow, so Chosen One actually winning their best of 3. The time it took 1 game to be played here. That is some speed, man. Very, very Skaven. The green one is going to be up 1 game. And adjust the scores and get into their picks and bans. Coming on in from Clan EC. Clan that I see pretty often, but too notorious for anything as far as I know. I don't know. If anyone knows anything about Clan EC, let me know in chat. They're going to be up against Swarv. Going to be down 1 game against the green one. Should be pretty good. Yeah, Chosen One, your Skaven game. People seem to like it. That huge nuking at the middle of the game there was so brutal, man. So brutal. I think your Skrulk, by the way, did he take 7 ticks of Spirit Leech damage from that first one? Because it seemed like he took 7 ticks for me. He took like 1,000 damage with 1 spell cast. I don't know if that was the second one, but seemed pretty brutal. The maps, by the way, for this, it's going to be Dark Elves against Beastmen. Generally, I would say favored for the Dark Elves, but only ever so slightly. Hey, and we got Bowmore in chat too. Mod of this server. Reminds me, I should probably make you a mod in my on my YouTube channel. Let's see if I can find it. Boom, Bowmore. Guess what? You're a moderator now. You got great power, but the responsibility is yours for the choosing. If you want to just sit back and relax, you can do that if you want. All right, and the game does load in. You were surprised how Skull took so much damage? Yeah, I think you just got really unlucky. What's the math? I got my trusty calculator here for all of these types of calculations. So it's 0.05 to the power of 7. Let's see, times 100. Yeah, there was like a 1% chance of that happening, roughly. So pretty crazy, man. But the second Spirit Leech barely did damage, so it all balanced out. At Enticity, it would be helpful for new players if you highlighted a few basic banner rules every so often pre-game. So that, let's see here. Yeah, sure, I can bring them up. In general, though, it's mostly the same as unit caps. So we'll have to see about it, but I'll see if I can fit them in. Now, for the armies of the green one and Swarv, it's going to be Dark Elves against Beastmen. For the Dark Elf force, it's going to be a very large cavalry contingent, 2 Manticores, and what's it going to be? It's going to be Marathi in the sky, coming in not on a Manticore, in a Pegasus. So it would be illegal for the unit caps. 2 Assassins, and that brings them up to 5 single entities. Caps them out on that front. Definitely a fairly good option against Beastmen, although recently Beastmen have been able to win in the single entity fight pretty often. Marathi coming in with most of her standard abilities. And that's basically going to be it. Just a medium tier frontline with some chaff and expensive units. And for the forces of the Beastmen, we're going to be seeing the Brave Shaman of Wild coming on in with a Trader Tint, which was popularized due to the AoE bug. Everyone started learning, hey, it's actually a pretty good ability. I think he also has a debuff spell. That's right, Devolve, minus melee attack and speed. Extremely good if you want to be catching out cavalry. For the mobility, some Centaur throwing axes, some dogs, and some more Centaurs. No, it's going to be Razorgore Herd instead. And the Tara great weapons. And for the Lord option, we got Torox, the Brass Bull, coming in with actually a little bit more kitted out than usual with his damage resist and both of his melee attack buffs, one of them giving ITP. His infantry too, Bestigor Herd and Gore Herd, quite elite, and they should be able to trade fairly well into the Dark Elf forces. That's right, Chosen One. You're not a mod. Get wrecked. Get destroyed. Anyways, I'll get to it eventually, but that's going to be it. The thing is, you don't really need that many mods when you only have so many people watching, since I don't have too many people spamming chat, and we haven't gotten to the point where the Slanesh bots start showing up. But anyways, that's going to be the setup for today. I would say Swarv has a pretty good chance of winning the frontline fight, especially with the Tuskor chariots here in the back, while the Dark Elves are very strong on the single entity front. They got Manticores, they got Marathi, and the 2 Assassins. So wherever they choose to win the battle is likely where they are going to be winning the battle, I would say. We've always wondered, what does that even mean? What powers do mods have? Yeah, they mostly just have they can delete stuff. That's about it. And your name is in blue. So if you're a fan of the color blue, you can go ahead and do that. Now both players look like they are ready. The battle does begin. Canaanite Assassins revealed immediately, sniffed out by these Chaos Warhounds, very good boys, and they get shot in the face for it, losing out 1 model right off the bat. Now there's not going to be too much damage either way, I don't think, except, oh man, the Dark Rider's actually getting a very nice volley on these regenerating Centaurs. They only lose 2 models though, so they will actually be healing that back up. the dogs do jump in onto the Canine Assassins, but it's a bit of a bait. They get dived in on by the spears and will be taking some damage. And meanwhile, on the left-hand flank, the Dark Elves, Manticores diving on in. Oh man, just annihilating those Tuskor chariots. Very nice for the Dark Elves. And oh no, Swarv, moving up with the Brave Shaman of Wild, actually gonna be getting a huge beating on. With the triple dive in of the Manticores, Assassin's Trophy dropped on top of him too. And that means basically every hit is going to be connecting here, getting taken down to half HP and terror routing immediately. Causes terror rout of the Razor Gore Herd, and that's going to be a pretty rough start for the Beastmen forces here. Torok's doing the best he can, but the second route drops on the Brave Shaman of Wild, and it looks like he will likely get chased off by Marathi, and if not, he'll be very close to routing off in any future engagements. This left-hand flank going quite well for the Dark Elves. The right flank mostly just being held by the Sisters of Slaughter, but actually being sacrificed a bit so that the Dark Elves can win over here. Torok's getting engaged on. He has his brass body propped. That means he's going to be taking a little bit less damage over the course of this engagement, but I don't think he'll really be able to win it here. Most of the forces of the Beastmen are really lacking on this flank, and with so many Dark Elf forces here, it seems like Torox is going to go down before he's able to win it. He does rampage one of the Manticores, though. Quite nice. This chance for a triangle pin there on the caster, yeah, that would have been real devastating, but he did manage to escape. The Minotaur is now getting routed off due to the superior firepower of the Dark Elves, and Torox, without his brass body now, is going to be taking a lot of damage from these two Manticores. Marathi even getting a few cycle charges in on him, and the Assassins actually with their AoEs are going to be nuking down these Bestigor. No, just normal Gore Herd? No, yeah, Bestigors and Gore Herd alike, getting in some pretty nice value here, making sure that Torox does not get the support that he is looking for, getting completely gooned out. And like I said, the Dark Elves, they really did have a single entity advantage here. And boy, oh boy, did they capitalize on it. Torox getting nuked down now. And although I think a Traderkin does actually drop on these guys, it actually doesn't do that much against single entities. Sort of acting like a weak, more expensive Spirit Leech is actually going to be mostly negated here. And Swarv does leave the game with the green one coming out 2-0 in this best of 3. Which means that we can follow them all the way on up to their match against Chosen One. Some very fast games today, which is to be expected. This is a higher tier tournament, so most of the players playing today are actually quite familiar with the best of 3 format. Marathi getting in a lot of value. Torox doing quite well for himself. Aster, fairly low value, as he did get gooned out. And this is why Torox is generally good. Even when he's getting completely beat on, he can still fight back. Still though, pretty scary overload for the Dark Elves. They annihilated those Minotaurs, and the Chariots weren't really able to get their value. That's basically how the cookie crumbles, so there we go. And now, to invite Chosen One. We can get Chosen One in this lobby, and we can get go on ahead and cast that game. Here's the tournament bracket and how it has progressed. Zyphos getting taken out by one of the highest ranking world champion players, Carl Harmon, who will be moving on to face against Ice Power. I wish I could see that, but we are letting the players play through the semifinals today, so that the stream doesn't take too long. GG for Green One indeed. But will they be able to take out a member of Clan ODM? One of the best clans in the world, coming with no bias from my point whatsoever. They're going to be up against Chosen One. It's going to be up against the Green One. And I'm wondering how this is going to play out. It seems like both of them actually enjoying a bit of Dark Elf action. Should be pretty fun. And another thing that's pretty interesting, people seem to be stabilizing a bit around how Beastmen are actually working out in the meta right now. I haven't heard too many cries of Beastmen OP and so on. So fingers crossed we don't get a Beastmen meta all the way up until Warhammer 3 drops. Fingers crossed. That was a pretty nice build though. Fairly standard, very Ice Power-esque, coming in with the Marathi double Manticore, double Assassin. No chariots though, and also no dark dark shards. There we go. That's what they're called. Right. Let's see. Let me also change this name. It's gonna be. Come on, ODM. Chosen one. All right. Are you streaming the Ice Power Call Harmon game? Sadly, we are not. We will be sticking with this. And it's purely to keep these tournaments short and sweet. I will be hosting them every week though. And if I feel like it, I might be able to do it more often. But let's not get too excited. We don't want to burn out with all of the Warhammer stuff that I've been doing recently. Especially with the Ent-Ladder bot. That bot takes a lot of work to add in new features. It was a grindy 2 weeks of development. But I'm very happy with where it is right now. It feels a lot more complete than it was before. And although it is lagging a tiny bit recently, I'm not sure why. I will try to fix that before tomorrow. But yeah, although it is lagging a bit recently, I think all the features are fairly good. It should be nice. Be nice. Righty. But yeah, what else is there to talk about, really? Have you guys seen the Cathay trailer? I'm sure everyone here has. Very amazing trailer. And I'm just hoping we don't get too much Cathay air cheese. Fingers crossed. At Enticity, did you do software engineering at college? I did. I went to the University of, actually, I don't want to say where I live, just in case, but yeah, I did study programming. I've wanted to do programming for since I was in grade 10, I believe, and I've been doing it all the way until 2 years after I graduated. So yeah, I've been doing it quite a bit, and I love integrating what I've been studying with with Warhammer. Great. Absolutely great. I actually get to make things that are used by other people, which is what anyone can hope for as a humble creator. At least I hope I'm humble. What's Cathay? You know what? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure, Hammond. I almost forgot all about it, honestly. It wasn't that exciting. Very cool big bucks on the horizon. Are you talking about programming? It does have a lot of job opportunities, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that's pretty good. Although it depends on what type of programming you do. The sort of the lower level programming jobs can be very, this is very standard work. Some of the higher tier stuff can pay insanely well. And honestly, I don't know if I'm qualified for that, but I'm working towards it. Now the picks, it's gonna be Lizardmen, Banning Chaos, and the Vampire Coast. Pretty standard picks for Lizardmen. Does leave a few gaps, in particular Skaven, possibly Dwarves, depending on how which side of the coin you actually fall on for that matchup. I like to say Lizardmen do beat Dwarves at the highest level. But instead the green one goes for Norska, a very old classic counter. And I'm wondering how well this will do. Now, the way this matchup usually plays out, Norska wants to get their javelins shooting at the big Lizardmen monsters. Lizardmen want to be winning the frontline fight so that their infantry can chase off the monsters. And that's basically it. It's fairly straightforward. I don't think there's a lot of divergence here. Since Norska is actually a little bit of a difficult faction to kite, given that it is ODM, I wouldn't put it past Chosen One. Oh, you do have CA hired you for multiplayer? I would be so excited. You don't even know, but if they said I had to move somewhere, I probably wouldn't do it unless they're paying a lot, because having to move to a different place for work costs a lot of money. For those of you that don't know, I do live at home with my parents to save money, and yeah, I don't know if I want to give up that fairly lucky situation for me. Still though, if they let me work remote, that would be amazing. It would be just great. And then I would suffer the stresses of working at a game company, which is usually pretty high, even though CA you say that their business practices are fairly good. In general, you don't want to you usually don't want to work at a game company. There's a lot of things like, you know, crunch is very common at game companies. So yeah, pretty sketch. But yeah, I'd work there for future Total War games. If they could get me on the AI team, that would be even more a dream job than just working on multiplayer. I love AI and all the complexity that comes with that. I'd be terrible at the job, aside from a beginner position, but man, that'd be great. You don't know if CA has a Canadian studio? They do. It probably would be in Montreal or Vancouver. Yeah, likely too far for me, unfortunately. It also does depend on the game company. Some of them will be able to, you know, treat their workers well. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Zyphos works at a game company, so there you go. It does really depend. Although overall, it's pretty stressful, at least from what I've heard. You gotta be real careful about which one you decide to work at. You know, I used to want to work at Blizzard too, but then Blizzard happened, so I feel like even if they gave me a position, I probably would not work there nowadays. I think most people would say that. Yeah, that's right. If you want spoilers about you know, this indie company's games, just DM Zyphos on Discord. I'm sure they will tell you everything about all the information. Of course, don't actually do that, but it would be pretty hilarious. You know, if everyone in chat did that, what? It'd be like 35 DMs? That's more than manageable. Just spam Zyphos like crazy. You know, when he says indie company, he actually means, you know, CA. Talking about the meme there. So if you want to know all the Warhammer 3 news, Zyphos is the person to message. You definitely recommend CA as a place to work. But do you work there? Or are you just saying that as a general statement? Because if you do work there, that'd be amazing. I've never had a person at CA watching my content before. That would be a milestone for sure. Zyphos knows all the gaming state secrets. For sure, yeah. It actually comes with working at a game company. You know all the secrets for every single game that's gonna get released. They don't tell you that in the business, but you know, you gotta... It's pretty sweet, honestly. Oh, you actually do work at CA? What? What is this? Oh my gosh. Wait, you're CA Doug? What is this? Oh my gosh. Well, pressure's on, guys. I have to what am I doing? I'm wearing like a random graphic tee. I'm here streaming from my own old bedroom. Oh my gosh. Oh jeez. Oh man. Oh, I'm sweating. I'm sweating. Everyone in chat, raid CA Doc. Too exciting. Now, we will go on to that hype in a second, because I do have my duty as a caster to cast these games, but I'm totally gonna be keeping an eye on chat. What the? That's insane. Now, for the forces of Norska, we do see Wulfric the Wanderer coming in with his boat and dueling ability. Very, very standard for Wulfric. Shaman Sorcerer, no final chance mutation. Also pretty common, actually, with the Plague of Rust and Searing Bolts. Is that what it's called? Man, all these names. Searing Doom, darn you, naming conventions. Yeah, Searing Doom, great against Source Infantry as they are slow. Marauder Horsemen, some mobility in the dogs, and oh, a Forest Overload on the right flank. And a Mammoth 2 to support. It's a fairly nice anti-infantry. No javelins except for the Marauder Horsemen. And that might be enough. It depends on what the Lizardmen decide to field. And taking a look at the Lizardmen, we are seeing a Slann Mage Priest of Fire coming in with a Burning Head ability. He also has some buffs for his infantry, the usual kit for Slanns. We also see an Arc of Sotek. That's actually, yeah, it's the one with the new Poison Wind effect that was actually reworked recently to be much more effective. If it touches but a single unit of infantry, it will affect the entire unit. CA Duck saying no stress in chat. All right. Ooh. All right, it's all pass. It's all pass. I'm back in the zone. We also see a Feral Stegodon, some nice monster combos here, and actually a fairly wide infantry line for the Lizardmen. Now the main advantage here is going to be their massive cavalry, Cold Wind Spear Riders, 2,000. Oh my gosh, and Duck actually subscribes. Thank you so much. It's going to be 2 units of cavalry coming on in for the Lizardmen. That's going to be vastly stronger than the mobility of the Norskins, with some skirmishers in the front, 2 stalkers. Now they only have as much battlefield control as they have ammunition, and unleashing their first volleys on the Marauders, while nice, not the most efficient targets. It does still bring them down to half HP though, and if the Norskins do run out of infantry, they could see many of the units getting overwhelmed. We'll have to see if these initial volleys actually do pay off. Meanwhile, the Norskins do begin advancing, the Lizardmen repositioning, and it looks like they will be taking on a straight up fight here, with the Mammoths on the left hand flank doing a little bit of overload action. Some shifting of the Skinks, pulling them back. This is a really nice play from Chosen One, because it allows them to get some massive volleys on the Mammoths, and the response from Green One pulling back the Mammoths to make sure that they don't fall into that trap. So pretty nice back and forth here, both players playing quite safe. Meanwhile, the game pauses for a second for me to swing on over here to the right flank, where the players do decide to take their engagement. Marauder Great Weapons will be diving in onto the source, getting in some pretty good value, but back onto the left flank, much more important, a big engagement with the Arc of Sotek does drop down. The Plague of Rust hits it, and it's going to be taking a huge ton of damage as the Mammoths dive on in. Burning Head destroys the Marauders, secures the right flank for the Lizardmen, but the balance of power goes for the forces of Norska. Arc of Sotek drops its ability, only hits a couple Marauders, not extremely worth it. Searing Doom completely misses. No, it hits 2 cavalry units, but basically completely misses. Definitely a big loss for Norska until Wulfric with the sick boat cleaves through the front line and gets in a lot of damage. Now looking to target the Slann Mage Priest. This could be a rather big play. The Manticore does come in to support. Now the AoE does drop onto these Marauders, they get annihilated, and we are seeing, as predicted, the Lizardmen are winning the infantry fight. This means that they will have a huge advantage in the single entity engagement, and it does actually pull off, forcing these Mammoths to pull back, because these Skink Javelins are going to be just giving them deaths by 1,000 needles? 1,000 cuts. There we go. Completely butchering our phrases today. Now that's pretty good for the Lizardmen. There's no healing on either side, and the Mammoths, they do take a bit of a beating. The cavalry moving in to actually pin them down now, and it looks like there's no forces to actually shut down these chameleon skinks. They've been able to unload their ammunition like no tomorrow onto the large Norskin forces, and that brings the balance of power into the favor of the Lizardmen now. We are seeing a huge rout onto a lot of the Norskin forces, and they're going to have to make a pretty big play to actually clear out all of the infantry here. Not impossible. The big boats could be landing, and this Mammoth, although routed, could come back, but it's looking pretty bad now, I would hazard to guess. Taking a look at Wulfric, he's on the cusp of routing, and right before he leaves, the Green One does actually tap out. Pretty brutal game. Some really nice dodges from Chosen One, negating the value of the caster, and the Slann getting some nice burning heads. So it was a bit of a flub on this Arc of Sotek, but everything else played out about how you would expect. Javelins getting in some good value, Stalkers paying for themselves. Basically how that plays out. Really nice back and forth though. keeping their units safe and trying to avoid bad engagements. Go ahead and change the score and take a look at chat. I saw chat was so busy in while I was casting there for no particular reason. I have no idea why. But what else do we got? What else? If I pull out my guitar and play a song, will we be able to get CA Duck to give us some spoilers? I feel like it would have the opposite effect. My guitar, there's a reason why it's in the background, more as a decorative piece. Biblington, yep, GG's, and indeed, Bowmore, yep, GG. But yeah. The only thing to mention is that the cavalry beta will be updated next week with the patch changes. What? That's sick. Oh man, that's hype. That's hype. I can't wait to experience the cavalry changes. What? You're just gonna drop that bomb in here? That's the first place where I heard about it. I'm sure it's been said elsewhere maybe, but that's sick. For people that haven't experienced the cavalry changes, one of the main things that it does, it allows cavalry to get their value back with a little bit of cycle charging action. So previously in the current patch, if you have your cavalry facing off specifically against great weapon infantry most of the time, they can't cycle charge them in an open field. But with the changes, as long as it's not a braced line of spears, your cavalry cycle charging will trade fairly effectively. Should be pretty good. Someone just deleted Cosmo's message. I got no idea. Oh no, you deleted your own message. Would you look at that? But yeah, the cavalry changes are very exciting. It brings back the old style of play of how you use them, and it should open up a lot of different builds for many factions. Now, will it break balance entirely? Probably not, but it will definitely be shaking things up. We may very well see another Bretonia meta, but there's only one way to find out, really. Zyphos asking about any balance changes on top of it too. Looks like it's going to be a nope this time around. And they're going to be keeping it light so that, okay, so that there can be, so that there's enough time to QA it. I see. Well, that's perfectly understandable. Perfectly understandable. And, yeah, it should be really exciting. I am so hyped to see cavalry changes. Although right now we do get to enjoy the meta of sort of how beastmen function without the chariot bugs and so on. It was on the forums as well. Okay, well, look at that. He got buried. Cool. You know, it still feels special to me because this is the first time I get to hear about it. The thing is, with the single player guys, they generally don't care that much about the cavalry interactions between units. That's like a very niche multiplayer type of thing. Because the AI, it usually braces against your charges anyways. So it doesn't really change too much on the single player side, which is great for us. It means we get some nice special treatment on the multiplayer side of things. Absolutely amazing. Simone already told us a few days ago, stop ruining my hype, Zyphos. I want to feel special. Now you can't blame your terrible cavalry micro on mechanics. Ah, that's true. That is true. If you lose to Beastmen, you can't blame it on bugs either. Terrible. It's a tragedy. Absolute tragedy. Now, I've been completely passing on the picks and bans here. It looks like a possible... Yes, it's a Beastmen pick. Banning the Wood Elves and Dark Elves, pretty standard, with the Vampire Counts counter pick. And this one I've been very interested to see. What we've seen with this matchup before, it used to be extremely Vampire Counts favored. Blood Knights in particular winning single entity engagements and clearing up infantry and cavalry alike. Then the Beastmen patch hit, and Wargors plus the Chariots were giving a hard time to elite Counts infantry and also their Blood Knights, thus causing them to lose their single entity fights. But now with the fix, will the matchup change again? That's sort of what we're here to see. Because on the Vampire Count side, they will be able to use a lot more Blood Knights now, but the Beastmen still have Gorgons. They still have Taurochs, Minotaurs, and so on. Very high mass mobile monsters that are great at dueling. Basically the bane of the vampire accounts. The rules have been, the restrictions have been lifted that beastmen can now field more chariots and actually start, using chariots to do great effect as mass and to clear out the vampire count's infantry, which could also just vastly change things. So I'm really wondering if how this matchup is going to change. I don't know if it's the same as before. It's mostly untested by me, but as of the last time I played it, I feel like the beastmen had a bit of an advantage. One thing to be careful in particular though is actually the new Gorst meta that sort of popped up out of nowhere since more or less nowhere, where you bring 2 necromancers and their mana recharge items to basically Gaze of Nagash 24/7. Just completely burning down the infantry, or no, not the infantry, the single entities of the beastmen, and then from there carrying out the win. You underestimate me, I can always blame someone else. Talking about reasons for losses, that is true. There is always another reason. First you heard of it? Hey, all right, yeah, we got breaking news. Sick. At least for the grand 40 people watching today, which is pretty good by my standards, but I'm sure quite small by others. Now, for the builds today, we do indeed see a fairly monster-heavy beastman build, Jabberslite, Gorgon, non-ROR, and actually Minotaurs instead of chariots. Pretty old school pick actually, but still very strong. Great Shaman of Wild, Traderkin, great versus Blood Knights, and Taurox. Wow, is he kitted out. Taurox basically having every ability in his list this time around. Both melee attack buffs. Actually, all of his damage buffs. He doesn't have his small AoE. That ability is generally overpriced. I wouldn't recommend taking that. And fairly cheap frontline. So, very interesting build for the Beastman. Mostly relying on the single entity blob like we described earlier. And actually no range units. Playing sort of like the vampire counts. For the vampire counts themselves, they've gone for also a very cheap frontline. With the ROR Graveguard, these guys may be able to survive into the late game and cause some carnage. Some dogs for the main mobility force. Actually just Black Knights in the distance mean that these mobile guys are just here to chase down all the mobile guys, or all the routing guys. They can't really do much in terms of a straight up fight aside from killing infantry. And that's going to be putting the vampire counts slightly behind here. For the hero core, we got the mana battery and a zombie summoner, Gorst, with his resets and his own variant of the zombie summon. Very nice for really shutting down the Beastmen backline. But that also doesn't matter too much. Crypt Horrors for the mass in the backline. And 2 Vargulfs and a Banshee for some dueling power. Means that both forces are actually maxed out on their single entities, except for the Beastmen. They only have 4 out of 5, so perhaps a little bit more mild there, but their single entities are definitely much more expensive. I would expect the Beastmen to win in most of their fights on that front, which means it's going to come down to these Crypt Horrors to do well here. That, or it's going to have to be summons. But overall, I would say the vampire counts, they might be in for a rough time. The Jabberslite too, specifically, with its magic damage, is great against the Banshee. It will annihilate it in seconds. So this could be a pretty bad choice for the vampire counts, I would say. What is really nice though is that their mobility advantage will be able to get them some free picks early on, but wow, look at those poor dogs. Dire Wolves trading real bad against the Ungor herd. Usually, if they don't countercharge, you can save a lot of damage, but you optimally would want a full surround to avoid that sort of type of trade there. But really quick reactions from the Beastman player, the green one here today. The Chariot does move on in, does plow into a few zombies, getting in a little bit of damage in, but if he takes any damage back, it doesn't get worth it. And he does get caught by the Blood Knights, the Black Knights, and he takes a lot of damage. Now this is pretty bad. Beastmen are taking an engagement a little bit earlier than they would have wanted. and he actually terrorizes. He will be coming back though, and Torox does manage to come in. Jabberslite does find the Banshee and will be able to not hit it, actually, surprisingly enough. But all in all, that was a pretty bad trade for the Beastmen. The Black Knights did get brought down to half HP, so it's not actually that bad thanks to the Minotaur charge. And they do actually charge into this other Vargul. The Gorgon dives in on top of it, and there we go, a huge Traderkin actually slamming down on all of the infantry units, hitting the Crypt Horrors too. And you can see it's actually getting in a lot of damage there. Jabberslite flying around as he does. And the Vargul, while it does manage to disengage, I think the Beastmen have taken a pretty good initial fight here. Pig Chariots are still way too strong. Well, you know, they have a lot of mass. That's basically their mass and armor piercing, which makes them different from other chariots. But that's a discussion for another day. The fight continues. There is still a huge blob here on the forces of the Vampire Counts, but their superior infantry will slowly be grinding down the Beastmen forces. Beastmen are more so on a timer in this type of fight, in this type of matchup. So they are mostly trying to kill off these single entities before all of their infantry wears away. The single entities have to play a bit more aggressively, lest the Beastmen clear out the Count's infantry with their monsters. So we'll see how it goes. Another Traderkin does drop, doesn't hit any of the knights, so it doesn't do that much damage. Like I said, single entities fare pretty well against Traderkin, but it does hit the Crypt Horrors, which actually does chunk them down quite a bit. As for the actual fight here, this is a huge blob fest, but one nice advantage for the Beastmen is that they have a surround on all the Vampire Count's infantry. That means that they can't cycle charge. The Beastmen instead have the luxury of disengaging at any point that they want. One big downside, however, is that the Vampire Count's infantry are quite numerous here. The Beastmen are taking a little bit of a bad fight by being here. However, the Minotaurs, with their very high leadership, are doing great. Torox's buffs are definitely keeping them quite strong, especially with the ITP. And although the Gorgon is taking a bit of a beating, one of the Vargulfs is looking to actually be falling here. A little bit more damage and it might actually crumble down. Plus the Crypt Horrors are actually going away too. The Beastmen and the Vampire Count's balance of power is completely even, but that doesn't really matter here. It all depends on how well this single entity fight goes. Torox gets the cycle charge also. Like I said, that's the main benefit they have here, with the advantage on mass. But look at all that infantry. The Beastmen forces have finally routed, and that does allow for a bit of a sandwich with the skeletons, the dogs now charging into the backs of the Minotaurs. And if they rout off the Minotaurs, that would be pretty bad for the forces of the Beastmen here. Gorse actually plowing through Torox somehow. Not sure exactly how that happened, but actually getting in a lot of damage and throwing in a huge heal. It looks like the infantry advantage will be coming out on top for the Vampire Counts. The Beastmen took a fairly nice engagement, but due to the timer running out a little bit too early, they weren't able to clear out the single entities before the fight started going sour for them. So it looks like that's going to be it. The battle still continues though. It's not completely over until it is over, as these single entities haven't routed yet. Torox still at fairly good HP. Jabberslite does get routed off. Mortis effect no longer a problem for the Vampire Count units, as it will very likely get chased off. The Grey Shaman hanging around the edges of the battlefield might actually be able to rally the Jabberslite, but without healing it, really won't be able to do too much. Gorgon now getting beaten down by the two Vargulfs, and unless Torox is able to pull a miracle here, it's going to be pretty rough. Taking a look at that Banshee too, Jabberslite just wasn't able to find its target for most of the battle. That's likely going to be it. Torox still going for a final Hail Mary, diving right on top of Gorst, sort of pushing him around as much as he can. The two Vargulfs trying to beat him down. Torox, who doesn't have any of his melee defense buffs running right now, so maybe he'll be able to take down Gorst. And if he does, plus the Vargulfs, that could switch it in the favor of the Beastmen. It's going to be a lot of good RNG that the Beastmen will need, and not what he'll be getting by the looks of it. Gorst basically taking no hits there as the Vargulfs finish off Torox. It's going to be game for Chosen One with two O's today. Very, very nice. Doing exceptionally well for themselves in today's tournament. Taking a look at the army values, the Trader Kins definitely did quite a bit of damage. Koroks too, but even though all of these forces were able to do damage, they weren't able to actually kill off any of the Vampire Count's units. That big engagement came just maybe like a minute too late, I would say. Maybe even last 30 seconds maybe. And the Vargulfs just weren't killed off at all. Had one of them died, all these single entities would have done much better. And not having mobility too for the Beastmen, and that huge charge in the back by these dogs really did a lot of damage. So well played to Chosen One. They will be moving on to the finals of today for the grand 25 Canadian dollar prize, up against the winner of Zyphos. No, Call Harmon. I'm so sorry, Zyphos. I saw you message in chat. I accidentally said your name. The winner between Ice Power and Call Harmon, defeater of Zyphos's. Should be pretty good. I'm quite excited myself. GG's indeed. All he has to do was swap gyros to Brimstone and he'd be fine. I got no idea what you guys are talking about. Paul Harmon just lost to 4 pig chariots, allegedly, according to Zyphos. That's pretty rough. Yeah, they are beastly chariots. Sure. Honestly though, I feel like maybe you just buff the other chariots instead of nerfing Tuskors. You know, we've only had like a couple metas where we've seen chariots, mostly involving Dark Elves. Is this game 3? Question mark. See if it is. I think it is. Should be pretty good. But yeah, I'm excited to see how Tuskors do as they were intended. I think that would be quite exciting. Let's see. Ice Power. Total War. Go. It's going to be game 2. So that means Ice Power is up 1 against Call Harmon. Going to be down 1 game. They're playing for their tournament life. Call Harmon's name. It gets me every time. I have to reference it at least 3 times for me to get it right. But there we go. It looks like it's going to be the Dark Elves up against a faction. I missed which one Call Harmon is playing, but we'll have to see. Is there a difference between Canadian dollars and American dollars? Yes. One is more valuable. That's basically it. It comes down to about $20 USD, which is still a pretty good price. Or a prize. Better said. Can we have chariot blobs all the way? We can try it. Chariots aren't nearly as good at killing single entities anymore, thankfully. So, that should be good. Yep, Canadian dollars are worth less, indeed. As much as it pains me every time I have any transactions with America. But here we go. Currency aside, we have the Lizardmen up against the Dark Elves. For the Lizardmen forces, it's going to be a pretty familiar Lizardmen build. Tic-tac-toe coming in with the Skink Priest of Heaven's abilities. Wait a second, that's not the Dark Elves, that's the Empire. Darn it. Darn it, oh my gosh, my professionalism slipping. Nevertheless, the build is good against both factions. Skink Priest of Heaven's Wind Blast, great against unarmored infantry. The Thunderbolt, great against artillery, forces them to dodge or lose a model. Lots of cavalry, just normal Cold One riders, since they are cheaper. One of the spears, though, probably because Call Harmon had a bit of extra money. The infantry, fairly cheap and cheerful, as some rubber ducks might say. And what else do we got? Chameleon Stalkers on the front line, the new favorite unit for the Lizardmen. These guys sort of had a bit of a weird position when the DLC first dropped, but I think people are starting to figure out how to use them more effectively. The fast mobile force with no Saurus. Frontline fighting is going to be a little bit more contested, but a lot faster for sure. In the air, Pterodon riders, will we see Fire Leech Bolas? No, yes we do. One of Call Harmon's signature units, the Fire Leech Bola, amazing against infantry, will likely be able to help this front line win. And that's going to be it. Very exciting for Call Harmon, a Zero Saurus build against the forces of the Empire, where we do see Volkmar the Grim, Amber Wizard, Manticore summons, great. General, Manticore summons, amazing if you want to snipe out monsters that are diving into your backline. Volkmar, great against the Skinks that we see for the Lizardmen. Some standard Empire Knights for the cavalry. Single unit of great cannons. And what are these? It's gonna be all Outriders times 4. It looks like Ice Power is very ready to fight against any monsters and single entities that come his way. His build will still do well against the, Pterodon Riders and Tic-Tac-Toe and so on, but I'm wondering if he's able to kill off the heavy skink line of Call Harmon. There is a lot more support on the front of the Lizardmen infantry, so I feel like Ice Power, it's on him to try and get a lot of value with Volkmar and push back the supporting elements with his Outriders. His cavalry is going to be down in a straight up engagement, but he's gonna have to, he does have a lot of range support. Where's Call Harmon from? I forgot, to be honest, unfortunately, but there you go. There's also an Empire Captain too for Ice Power on foot, which is actually one of the strangest picks I've seen in the last month, probably. This guy, you don't see him taken very often. He has decent stats, but very little AP. That makes him a little bit worse in a lot of situations. Call Harmon is Dutch. Thank you very much, Chosen One. Knowing the people better than I. I'm simply here just to talk about the game. Now, the Lizardmen, they will be advancing, as is their, as is the attacking rules. We are playing on fruit rules, by the way, so the air skirmishers is limited to 4. The cannons just picking off a couple units of infantry. Doesn't really have too many targets until the cavalry gets in range, but as they do, no Ice Power targeting the red-crested skinks instead. Tic-Tac-Toe with some nice dodges. You can expect this with high-level players, where they will dodge basically all of your shots to the point where it's not even worth targeting mobile single entities. Still though, Ice Power does go for it. He has a lot of ammunition, so it's not really like he's wasting too much of it. Plus, if there's a misplay, and there is, they're going to be taking a lot of damage. So it is still worth going for every once in a while. It does pay off. Tic-Tac-Toe dives in on Volkmar, but man, is he taking a lot of volleys from these two Outriders. The Pterodons come in a tiny bit late to push them back, but they finally do arrive. Nice rock drop. Takes down those Outriders to half HP, and Tic-Tac-Toe stays on top of Volkmar. Volkmar has honestly terrible melee stats, so he won't be holding for too long, and the cavalry is going to be doing its best to try and sneak their way in. They want to shut down these Outriders, and it looks like one unit of cavalry is about to slip through. Another one killing a unit of spearmen, ironically, and that will be able to push back the Outriders. Tic-Tac-Toe having fairly free reign here. Gonna be going in for Volkmar, ignoring the Manticore. Thankfully, he doesn't get punished for it, as the Manticore decides to assist in the cavalry fight too. Not a bad choice, since cavalry does need to hold for the Outriders to do well. And Tic-Tac-Toe just giving an absolute beating to Volkmar, although the initial damage he took is quite brutal indeed. Meanwhile, taking stock of the infantry front line, there's wins and losses all around, but overall it seems like the Lizardmen is coming out on top, and their extra infantry support is now spilling over to win the cavalry engagements. The red-crested skink chiefs are pretty easily laying waste to the Empire Knights. They'll be able to push them back consistently, and Tic-Tac-Toe taking a little bit of a rest in the air before he re-engages onto Volkmar. Looking for more favorable engagements, definitely not a bad choice. He dives on in, likely will be able to get some good damage. Pterodon Riders too, engaging on the Outriders is really nice, as it more or less shuts them down for the majority of the game. So that's pretty good. Tic-Tac-Toe though, he does get dived in on by the first summoned Manticore. It rampages, which means its control is going to be a bit worse, but it still lands a couple hits. Ooh, dives, and just barely does not connect with Tic-Tac-Toe's high melee defense. He does have 50, which is really good, but had that hit, Tic-Tac-Toe would have been just ruined. he would have been routing off the battlefield for sure. So that definitely was pretty lucky for Cole Harmon. Tic-tac-toe though, he survives. He's diving in on Volkmar again, but a bit of a stabilization in the Empire backline. These Outriders are doing really well. Cole Harmon sees it and he dodges those shots. That big volley definitely would have annihilated Tic-tac-toe had he not dodged. So very good plays on that front. Ice Power doing quite well for himself though. He has managed to keep the Outriders alive for the majority of the fight. Has had a pretty good scrap at holding back the Lizardmen lines, but it seems like the Lizardmen will just barely be edging out the Empire in this battle. Really the main threat just being Volkmar, and the fact that he's just a regenerating tank that'll stick around for the entire battle. Tic-tac-toe, on the other hand, does not have any healing, and although he does have a lot of good combat buffs, Volkmar, just a couple lucky hits is going to be knocking him out. And this could actually turn the tides for the Empire here, as Tic-tac-toe takes a huge hit from Volkmar and actually will be fleeing the battlefield. Very unlikely that he'll return too, since the edge of the map is so close. So that's pretty bad for Cole Harmon. He doesn't have a lot of tools to kill Volkmar. He does have the ROR Red Crested Skinks. He's cleaning up all of the cavalry, so I don't think Volkmar will have any support by any means. And there is an Empire captain too, but he's sort of just getting ground up by those Skink warriors, and it looks like Ice Power actually taps out early. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but not a terrible call. I don't think Volkmar could kill this much infantry without cycle charging, but you never know. I'm actually a tiny bit surprised there. There was very little to kill single entities. Of course, there were Pterodon riders, so pretty likely that the Pterodon riders could have shot Volkmar to death. But pretty surprising indeed. Tic-tac-toe getting in. He paid for himself, which is good value. Empire Captain did not, unfortunately. Although by the end of the battle, he definitely would have. But the main winners here were the infantry and their cavalry support. They pushed through the Empire front line and shut down these Outriders. They barely got any value. So very good. Cole Harmon coming in with a second win. Gives us our first ace match of today, which does mean it's going to be a pick 3 system now. Now, when it comes to the pick 3 system, it usually takes a while for players to figure it out, which is why I would like to recommend my Discord, which does have a script that will give you pick 3s with the fewest bad matchups possible. It's great. Just go onto my Discord, find the pick 3 channel near the bottom, and yeah, you can just download and run it. Now you will have to update the Excel table to make sure that the that your faction matchups are up to date. But once that's done, it's amazing for pick 3s. Anyways, advertising aside. Cool. Yeah, Cole Harmon taking the win. We said get wrecked Xiphos. Not me, that's for sure. Reaction for something I said? No, definitely not. I would never speak ill of Xiphos. Never. But Cole Harmon just annihilated him in round 1, I gotta say. Just devastating. I didn't see the battle, but just ground to dust. It was brutal. Alright, anyways. Enough trolling Xiphos for today. A very nice match. Pretty close. Yeah, this is a sponsored stream indeed. Actually, speaking of the actual legit sponsors, the patrons, thank you so much, guys. But we'll go over that by the end of everything. They actually are sponsoring the prize pools for these tournaments, and they allow me to give 25 Canadian big ones to the winners. It's great, guys. They'll let me keep this going for months and months to come for sure. Now, cool. That's pretty nice. We got we're into the ace match. Cole Harmon winning the last match is the one that will be picking his 3 factions: Wood Elves, Dark Elves, and Beastmen, banning Bretonia. Not a bad layout. I would say Vampire Coast. Nah, Vampire Coast would have a hard time versus Beastmen, I would say. To shreds, I say. To dust. Yeah. He doesn't even exist anymore. The Xiphos in chat is a bot that I wrote to hide the fact that he got annihilated. Dust foes. Oh man, That would be amazing. I'm ready for you to change your name on Discord to be that now. Oh man. I hope the matches were close though. I do hope. Zyphos, an amazing Wood Elf player. He's just devastating with cavalry, I gotta say. As we saw, I think on Milk and Cookie's channel, he annihilated my Beastmen with 3 Dragon Princes essentially. And once that beta patch comes out, I have a feeling I'll be eating my words, because it's absolutely terrifying. Zyphos with some beefed up cavalry. It's gonna be great. A live Enticity stream. Sotek, you made it. Yes, indeed. I have transitioned from Twitch to YouTube. I know, it's crazy. How is this even possible? Oh my gosh, we're getting so many celebrity guests in chat today. Yeah, we had CA Duck coming in chat earlier. It was crazy. I was joking. I'm like, oh man, if I had an actual worker at CA on one of my streams, that would be a day. And it was. Just blew my mind. But you know, bragging aside, I guess. Welcome. Should probably stop boxing. Are you talking about like my art? I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, we do have a VIP guest here indeed. You like how I didn't even tell you left? See, Sotek, the thing is, real fans of the Enticity channel would have heard me mention it the 1 or 2 times I did while I was on Twitch. But you know, I guess you just weren't dedicated enough to catch the message. Yeah, it's an interesting story, guys. Lord Master of Sotek thought I just dropped out of the multiplayer scene when I stopped streaming on Twitch like a few months ago. And he only figured that I was still going at it when he saw me on Turin's stream a while back, like a couple days ago, I think. So up until now, yeah, I was essentially dead to him. It was crazy. But yeah, it should be good. The things have been going really well recently. Especially with the cavalry changes incoming. If the beta goes well enough, oh man, it's gonna be exciting. It's been so long since we've had a proper cavalry meta. You hope you don't see Skaven win? Oh, you hope he didn't see Skaven win. I think he might have just missed it, Chosen One. I think you're safe there. You won't have to worry about the lizardmen bearing down on you. Quick shout out to Winan, who just won the Bronze Silver Rank League Champions. Hey, there we go. Thank you very much, Bowmore. Yeah, so right now we actually have 2 tournaments going on at the same time. A Silver to Bronze tournament and a Gold to Masters tournament. Human Boy is casting the other one, so check him out on Human Boy /YouTube. Does a lot of other content too. So yeah, very exciting. Winan will be taking home, I think, a solid $5 prize. Pretty exciting. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's what I do. I get to sit here on my soapbox. I can throw as much shade as I want and just remove comments as I wish. It's great. But yeah, oh man, Cathay news. Oh man, I saw your videos on Cathay Sotek, on like all the different Tzeentch units in the background, all the Cathay units. I am so excited. I really want to play Tzeentch. I know some people don't like the armor on his Chosen, but oh man, it's gonna be great. And also, by the way, the tournament, it seems like the players have selected their factions. It's going to be Wood Elves against Chaos. Pretty interesting. Wood Elves can kite Chaos. The map is large, but the forests can get in the way for both players. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. It could go, honestly, either way. I haven't seen Call Harmon play too much Wood Elves. I do know Ice Power has been learning Chaos a lot recently. Played Chaos a ton versus myself. And I think generally as a first pick, maybe? Oftentimes as a counter pick too. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the new Ice Power way moving forwards. We'll have to see. Oh yeah, so much hype for Cathay. ODM has a lot of people that are really excited for them, especially for their possible kite ability, but they actually seem like a pretty defensive faction by the looks of it. For those of you that don't know, Zyphos actually really likes heavy infantry factions. So I feel like Cathay would be pretty good. Although he is known for his, for his mass kiting style and cavalry play. He does, he enjoys infantry too. So that's basically the whole lot, except for single entities. You genuinely think CA will update the Chaos Warrior / Chosen model so long as the community keeps pushing? Yeah, that's generally what happens. The thing that the community fixates the most on, for every time there's a new update or announcement, there's usually a little bit of touching up that goes on there. CA's pretty responsive on that front, but man, they spoil us with it. We're spoiled. The Tzeentch Chaos Warrior's armor is likely going to change, seeing the backlash. Yeah, because Khorne got his fancy armor on his troops, so it'd be cool to see like a unique Tzeentch sort of armor. For me though, I play so zoomed out, it honestly doesn't matter that much for me, but I know it's important for other people. 100% hopefully the Tzeentch Chaos Warriors are just placeholders. Well, we do have like at least, what, 3 months before Warhammer comes out? When did they say? Like early 2022? Man, gonna be a while. But there will be Age of Empires coming out, I think, next month, so maybe I'll stream some of that. Much to, I'm sure, many of your dismay. I won't be dropping Warhammer by any means, but man, I want to play that game. To be fair, the Khorne models were actually unique. Yeah, so, people see the Khorne models and then they really want to see all the other stuff. Chosen One saying probably February 2022. Ooh. Oh boy, oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be so good. 7 factions, very likely Ogre Kingdoms. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting to play with the Ogre Kingdoms for like 15 years now. I'm sure people in chat, maybe even longer. So this is gonna be great. 4 to 6 months till release, says Sotek. Oh man. Ooh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Khorne units were just red. No, they got the hats. They got the big, elephant ear hats. Great. Although there was a lot of red. The orcs would be proud. But yeah, Khorne units were still pretty cool though. The motorcycles, interesting take. For me, I'm all about gameplay though, Take a look at these Chaos Warriors. If they all had different models, I would not know. Such is the way of multiplayer. But here we go, Ice Power coming in on the Chaos side against the Wood Elves is going to be bringing in a heavy infantry army. See this type of play when you want to make sure that you have enough shields to just tank all the arrows in the Wood Elf army. These guys, they got silver shields, they got bronze shields in the front line, lots of armor, so it has to be Way Watchers and such to kill them. They're extremely hard to take down, but they will eventually if you're not careful. Skirmishers for Chaos, going up to only 5, a single Marauder Horsemen and some Marauder Horse Masters. Okay, it's a mix of both. Some dogs too to catch cavalry if they cycle charge, and the classic double caster for Chaos. Now the reason that they're 2 different casters is because the rules say that you cannot take 2 of the same spells, so usually you see them split up into different types. Burning Head, Fireball, to win a frontline rush army. Spirit Leech to win against Kite. Sigvald, the very meta pick nowadays for Chaos, for he's basically indestructible. But he will die to the beast we see here, Durthu, coming on in for Carl Harmon's Wood Elves. Coming in with the Sword of Death. Make sure to cast that in range. There is a bug that if you cast it outside of range, it won't trigger. Block of Doom, also very scary. And actually a monstrous frontline of Treekin. Now this is a little bit... I have not seen a lot of builds like this against Chaos. It's gonna be a bit of a frontline rush. Sometimes you do actually see it though. An Earthblood Spellsinger. But it's really going to rely on the fact that Chaos does not have a lot of armor piercing. And the Gambit will pay off. If you look at this, all of these guys, none of them are great weapons. You don't want to take them as Chaos because they don't have shields. So I think this could actually work quite well for the forces of the Wood Elves. They have a lot of infantry to grind through, but the front line is very elite with mixed in Wildwood Rangers. Ooh, we'll have to see though. There's a lot of chaos to grind out. Some chat's talking about the old world stuff. Yeah, there's a lot. It's a good time to be a Warhammer fan, I think. Feeling pretty good. Not much is going to go on in the front line except for maybe a bit of caster sniping. So we do have this time to spend with the people in chat. But we already see Chosen One not too excited about the Wood Elf build. He says he thinks it likely won't go too well, probably due to the fact that there is so much chaos barreling in onto them. And Wood Elves do immediately start pulling back. Oh man, and right away the Way Watcher is getting pounded down by the Marauder Horsemen. Oh my gosh, already down to half HP. Spirit Leech drops. It's going to be killing 7 models. Like I said in my tutorial, a heal drops on them just to pick them up from the Marauder Horsemen. The Spirit Leech will still go off in full. The front line of the Wood Elves still fairly healthy. They haven't taken too much damage. Most of it was put on the Way Watchers, unfortunately. And the front line is going to be engaging. Now, Durthu does win against Sigvald, just because he does so much damage. Sigvald's main weakness is specifically that. But oh my gosh, a huge Burning Head does drop on these Wildwood Rangers. That's like 900 gold off the table immediately for Call Harmon. That's absolutely devastating. Sword of Date does drop. It's going to be getting a lot of damage on the Mirror Guard, but it's not enough to salvage his front line by any means. That is very bad. The back line is having to retreat to some Chaos Warriors, and that means that the Wood Elf front line is more or less unsupported now. Not the worst thing in the world, but definitely quite bad. Dogs are starting to spill through too, and Durthu not really finding too much of a fight. Even though he will be able to win most engagements on his own, the fact that Chaos does have these supporting elements means that he will die to the superior ranged firepower. One good thing though for Call Harmon, the fact that he has kited back with his range units means that he will be able to get some nice crossfire on the Chaos Warriors, but as I say that, the dogs, the good boys of the Chaos, do dive into the back line and start munching down on these Glade Guard. They're going to be going down, very likely routed. Left flank of the Wood Elves routing off too. Balance of power slightly in the favor of Chaos also. And it's looking pretty bad for the forces of the Wood Elves. Just build-wise, having a very hard time so far, but also eating a ton of spells. And a good luck, have fun in chat. For some reason it comes in delayed, but nevertheless. Or I just noticed it very late. But yeah, it's pretty bad at this point. Durthu getting just completely shot down by the Marauder Horseman. He's now on the run, and he's barely found any combat for the entire game. What really needed to happen were these range units had to defend the Chaos against the Horsemen, but Ice Power did a very good job pushing back into the front line, poking a hole straight through the Wood Elf forces. And here all of these trees are going to get chopped down by javelins somehow. I don't know exactly how it works, but hey, they still do a lot of damage. Gotta be poking down the cavalry too. The Sisters of Thorn do get in a pretty nice charge on some Marauder Horsemen, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. A lot of this is gonna come down to how well Durthu does, I suspect. But I think Ice Power has a pretty good hold on the mobility game. What the Treekin have done though is that they've held the Chaos for about 4 minutes straight. A really good trait of the Treekin. But Ice Power, his plays, his navigation has managed to avoid the Treekin and slipped through into the back line. Doing quite well for himself. The Marauder Horsemen now pushing forwards. They're going to be chasing down some of the Glade Guard. They do get hit by, by the Sisters of Thorn actually. Getting some stat debuffs, getting charged in the face, perhaps. The Wood Elves doing a bit better on the mobility, but it's the Hail Mary time. You see this every time a player starts lagging behind. Durthu coming on in, going for those big RNG plays. He's going to be trying to snipe out Sigvald probably here. If he's able to do that, it could go quite well. But, you know, with mass terror routes on the Chaos side. But Sigvald is at full HP. He procs his Slippery, And an interesting tech that you do here as Chaos, you proc one of your melee defense buffs at a time. Sigvald has such high melee defense, you don't want to use both because you get a bit of diminishing returns when you use both of them. And Zyphos too, saying, yeah, Sigvald plus some infantry can take down Durthu also. That is true. Durthu, he only squares up against Sigvald despite being a completely different weight class. And Ice Power has done it. He's cleaned him up. He's won the ace. Yeah, he's won the ace match against Carl Harmon, coming in with the Chaos build. Fairly standard build. I think this is a very strong one. Against Wood Elves, this is typically what you want to be taking. I would say it's safe enough even just to copy it verbatim at this point. And yeah, all in all, just executing it quite well too, burning through the front line and shutting down these important range units. The Way Watchers did not manage to kite. The Glade Guard only just barely paid for themselves. And Durthu, having to avoid the Horsemen for the whole game, got less value than most units that perform well. That's very unfortunate for him. There we go. It's gonna be rough for Carl Harmon, but ODM still has a chance in this tournament, as we will be moving on to Ice Power versus Chosen One. The lobby should be up somewhere, and as soon as I'm able to find it, we can dive right on in. Some very nice games today though, and I'm wondering who will be coming out on top. Both of these players are very well practiced, so we'll have to see. Carl Harmon deserves style points. He does. He did go for the tree build. It is uncommon for someone to take a straight up fight against Chaos, but it is generally pretty unexpected. So he can actually pull some pretty good punches if Chaos sort of overkills on their anti-kite styles of play. But a very classic, very classic style of Chaos build ended up paying off for Ice Power. Now for the finals of today's tournament is going to be Chosen One up against Ice Power. Go Chosen One. There we go. Ice Power, frequent winner of these tournaments, is going to be quite the force to be reckoned with. Up against Chosen One, actually sort of a newcomer when it comes to these types of tournaments. I'm wondering how well they'll be doing. Now, Chosen One has played in a ton of other tournaments, but new to the Ranked League Champions format. It is a best of 3 finals too. So it's just gonna come down to who has the most practice in this format. And I'm expecting some pretty good contested matches here. Probably not too many throws, although also a possibility. We may see Skaven from Chosen One, but I would say fairly unlikely based on how often they usually take them. Ice Power, possibly the Dark Elves if a good matchup is presented to them. But otherwise, I would say very likely Ice Power would be seeing something else instead, like probably Chaos. I think Chaos is the safest bet that we'll get from your boy Ice. You're gonna yank so many builds from this? Yeah, this tournament specifically, due to it being fairly higher tiered, you need to be getting in a good amount of wins to even qualify for this tournament. It means that all of the builds that you see today at least will have at least some merit, I would say. For sure. The Wood Elf versus Chaos build is like 85% what you were using already. Definitely optimized. Yeah, as a frontline fighting build, it definitely works out. Ice Power, so it means elves are coming. I don't think he plays too many high elves though, but Wood Elves and Dark Elves definitely pretty likely. And what do we got? Chosen One asking for the picks of Ice Power. He's deciding. And we'll see what Ice Power actually decides to do as his first pick. We haven't been able to follow him throughout this tournament series today. So I'm interested to see what he thinks is the most meta thing for the factions he has learned so far. I would say probably Chaos, but in the previous game, did not first pick Chaos. Perhaps Lizardmen, Beastmen would be very meta as of right now. So we'll have to see. It looks like it's going to be a greenskin pick. Banning Counts and Skaven. Very old meta style of play, but greenskins are still very, very scary. Their chariots, too, recently got a little bit of a buff. So I think they actually do hold their own a little bit more than people are thinking right now. I would say greenskins are they're very underrated for how good they are. Because their nerfs didn't hit them that hard. Just a couple hundred gold less. That's not gonna change a faction from OP to useless, I would say. They do get a little bit overshadowed by beastmen nowadays. And that's probably the main reason why we don't see them too often. Actually, a lot of people don't play greenskins that often. Banning Skaven, that is strange, but given that he is playing against Chosen One, frequent Skaven player, I would say it's not a bad choice for sure. And we'll see. We'll see what Chosen One goes for. He stalls out. Chosen One not having an immediate pick in this situation. Not bad, not bad. But perhaps he will come up onto something. As greenskins were extremely meta before, it's very likely for a lot of players who have played in previous metas to be very comfortable with against greenskins. This is the first time watching anything here. Oh my gosh, the Adrian. Happy to have you. And to be honest, you were picturing best coast player, kind of different. Oh yeah, you'll have to look at my other videos to see some coast play. There's a lot of Vampire Coast content on this channel though, I gotta say. It is very much my brand. More like a bearded dude, beer can next to him. Alright, cool. I don't know if that's exactly what describes the channel, but sure. Unless I'm completely misreading, which is common for me. Grom isn't too OP anymore. Its chariot is acting normal now. Yes, but the boar chariots got buffed. Grom got nerfed pretty hard, which did kick the greenskins into place a tiny bit. But I think greenskins are still pretty good. I wouldn't count them out of the meta by any means. Just people don't enjoy playing them that much, I guess. But the pick is going to be Lizardmen. This is the most classic pick that you see against greenskins, as Lizardmen do have a very superior single entity fighting, engagement. They'll do great. Yeah, they'll do great there. So I think greenskins, Ice Power might have his work cut out for him here. Now, if he has been practicing greenskins very often, it's not an impossible matchup. Some people will go for the double giant, which is pretty nice. Some people will also go for a lot of skirmishers, which will do good. Just make sure that they don't get absolutely nuked by Mazdamundi. With the net bug, sort of AoE fixes coming in though, I feel like for greenskins at the very least, they're feeling a little bit more comfortable in this matchup than they were before. Alternatively, we could see a kite play from Chosen One. Lizardmen can kite here, but the map is not very well suited for it. So I would expect probably more of a frontal rush. For the greenskins too, probably not too many skirmishers, maybe more of a reliance on archers. But for them, they can go for more skirmishers if they want to. They are a little bit more expensive though. So pretty good. Poll on the winner? Sure. So let's go ahead and set that up. You guys did get a little bit of spoilers. You got to see who the factions that they picked already. That's such a huge advantage, guys. But let's see here. Let's go ahead and open this up. Why don't we? The YouTube is so weird. I have to go all the way to the actual video to set up a poll. But here we go. Who will win it all? All right. Will it be Chosen One or Ice Power. Poll should be up right now. And there we go. There it is. This is for the best of 3 as a whole. Put in your votes. Show who you're supporting. The annoying thing about the polls too, it actually gets in the way of me seeing the chat, unfortunately. But you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. YouTube isn't as polished as Twitch for its community features, but it just it's a lot more convenient to be on YouTube, so that's the way I'm sticking with. You're watching a lot of turn streams and you're cheering for me whenever I play. Oh, thank you very much, the Adrian. I try my hardest, but it's really hard to get a lot of practice in when you're managing a ranked ladder, videos, and trying to train with your clan at the same time. It gets pretty busy, but I do manage to fit in a bit of practice every once in a while. So while I think I'm not improving extremely quickly, I'm definitely not getting worse, which is pretty nice. I hope you can't hear the motorcycle outside, by the way. It's pretty loud on my end. But usually this microphone's pretty good at not picking stuff up. So the poll is done. And we got 52% Chosen One. 47% Ice Power. That is about as close as it gets. That's 10 to 9 votes, guys. Oh man. Oh man, this is gonna be hype. Watch, it's just gonna be a 2-0 waffle stomp. I'm ready for it. Greetings from Poland. Oh yeah. It's always cool to see where everyone's from. Kraken King. Oh man, I love that nickname so much. Just because of a random just because I randomly decided to take Silostra one time against Felcon. And then that Kraken's pull. That one Kraken's pull earned me such a wonderful title. Oh my gosh. And honestly, this all wouldn't be possible without Turin and Lore Master of Sotek. All of their support making me more of a figure than I would be otherwise. Man, I recently got a message on YouTube. It said my channel has existed for 1 year. It hit its 1 year anniversary recently. I still haven't learned to talk apparently. And man, it's been a journey. Been 1 year. We got to 1.6k subs. If I had 1 gold for each sub, I would be able to purchase a single giant, which is still pretty good actually. It's a lot larger than I would have expected when I first started this channel. Hopefully we do continue growing. That is the plan for the foreseeable future. Now build wise, these players are sitting around. They've been deciding for a really long time Ice Power. Presumably not having a preset build against Lizardmen. Maybe trying to mix it up a little bit. Maybe trying to just trying to psych out Chosen One. Maybe he accidentally deleted his builds. We'll have to see. Warhammer community are good peeps indeed. There's a lot of like connections in the Warhammer community. I think strangely enough, the fact that CA has forced us to add people to our friends lists just to queue up into them has made the Warhammer community a lot closer than it would be otherwise. Because you know, after every tournament you just have a bunch of people on your friends list. It's absolutely dandy. But enough warm fuzzies. We got killing to do. Lizardmen against the Greenskins. Chosen One against Ice Power. Game number 1. Most people have voted for Chosen One to win at 10 to 9 odds. I think I'm saying that right. So it's very close, 52% chance to win based on the community votes. For his army though, a Feral Stegodon, a Bastiladon, Ark of Sotek, and 2 Pterodon Riders. Not a lot on the skirmishing force, although it does exist. Most of the money is going to be spent on this chunky front line. Saurus Warriors for days, ×4, and some skink javelins in case there are giants. Actually, this army seems a little bit small, but nevertheless, the abilities on Mazdamundi, very expensive beast. The Saurus Warriors eating up a lot of money too. So we'll see how that actually goes. For the Greenskins, it's going to be Oh, look at that! As I expected, triple orc boar chariots. These guys have recently gone a buff. They have fairly good armor piercing values, and actually they sort of perform like Tuskor chariots, who also shred down those Saurus warriors like no one's business. Archers in the back, they'll be focusing down Mazdamundi, and a fairly cheap front line of orc boys, and a single Night Goblin. I wonder what type of Night Goblin this is. I really do. Man, if they hit the ROR thing, well, they're unbreakable, it'd be really obvious, but definitely a very big threat to any Saurus warrior play. I'd say Chosen One has a lot to worry about here. He has to keep Mazdamundi safe and keep his Saurus warriors from getting completely annihilated by chariots. He has no cavalry to really catch them out easily, and that could be the downfall today. We'll have to see. A little bit of dodging from the Saurus spears. They don't take a lot of damage from the skirmishers, as they are rather tanky. Not too much damage there. Wurzag on his boar, his spell kit, as you can see here. The net is going to have to be avoided by Chosen One. River Troll Hag has a slow also. She's going to be punishing Mazdamundi quite hard. Chosen One is not. Careful. A slow and a net could very much have him getting shot to death by archers. But right now it's just a lot of posturing from both sides. They've squared up. They face off against each other. Staring death straight in the face. Pterodon Riders trying to get some damage. And it looks like a rock drop is going to be set up here. Oh, the Night Goblins, they don't dodge. Ruination of Cities drops. Hits the archers. And there we go. Big rock drop on the Night Goblins. Happens right as the Ruination of Cities drops. Takes the micro off of ice power and allows for some pretty nice trades right off the bat. Bard from the Tavern saying, hey bud, how did them Death Runners work out in that Beastmen game? I think it worked out pretty well. I'm pretty sure it was a little while ago. But anyways, we've got a game to cast. Chariots are moving in. They're going to be plowing through the skinks immediately, taking them down to less than half HP. Absolutely brutal. Stegadon moves in, but the main fight here, Mazdamundi and the Saurus warriors. Will these chariots be able to kill off all the Saurus? We'll have to see. Mazdamundi, though, gets hugely netted on top of himself, and while the front line does win, Mazdamundi takes a huge beating on top of himself. Plus, there's not a lot really for these chariots. Not a lot to really stop them at any point. No cavalry, so they're getting in a ton of damage. Saurus warriors too, diving in on the goblins. Last second fanatic bomb on them drops, and that's very, very unfortunate for Chosen One. That's about 400 gold value that could have been avoided had there been a little bit more damage on those goblins, but instead they basically get full value as they would have expected. Mazdamundi though is running strong. The Arc of Sotek, surprisingly enough, barreling down the back line actually breaks off a lot of the archers, and that's going to be a pretty nice saving grace for Chosen One. But a big play here. Mazdamundi charges into Wurzag. He's going to be taking a pretty good fight, healing himself up, and Wurzag does have to disengage. It's pretty nice, but if Mazdamundi goes down, the game is more or less over. At the moment though, he's causing a lot of routes and terror routes in the greenskin backline, and although the chariots have been quite scary, they are slowly but surely going down. One of them on the verge of routing, but they are still at 3 models, and they do rout off one of the Saurus warriors. Very nice for ice power. There aren't too many Saurus warriors left, but there are still 2 of them at fairly good high HP. As long as they manage to stay alive, the battle should go in the favor of the Lizardmen, since with that infantry support, they can more or less clean up the rest of these goblins here. But there are 3 chariots still alive. They're plowing through these skinks, and they've more or less secured this left-hand engagement. Meanwhile, over here, the Arc of Sotek just slowly but surely wearing down a single goblin big boss. Looks like it will be able to disengage too fairly safely. But these chariots are just continuing to be a problem. Mazdamundi can't get his hands on top of them. And it looks like a slow is going to be dropping. No, a Soul Blight on top of these guys here. But no follow-up means that the Lizardmen are still sitting fairly comfortably. What is bad for them, though, is that the balance of power is in the favor of the greenskins. But I would not take too much I would not pay too much attention to that currently, since the Lizardmen have a really strong big dinosaur bonus. They'll be able to win in any melee engagement with mass terror routes, and the Greenskins don't have that much in terms of single entity fighting. Their archers too are running out of ammunition, and there's just one archer unit left really that'll be able to continue fighting. I guess there's a single unit of orc archer boys. The Chosen One has done a good job of using his Pterodon riders to chase things off, and there we go. The Stegodon? Yes, the Stegodon. It actually routes off the chariots, patching them out in the late stages of the game. This is a huge win for Chosen One, and if they actually do get chased off, that would be absolutely massive, since the Skink Skirmishers could continue fighting. Pterodons chase off the rest of the archers, and the balance of power evens up again, with I think the overall fight going in the favor of Chosen One, since Mazdamundi can continue healing up the rest of the forces. That's very, very nice for Chosen One. And he is now beginning to chase off the River Troll Hag. That's pretty good. Sorry, there's a lot of chat going on that I do not understand, but nevertheless, Mazdamundi does get pinned down by Warzag. Without a lot of archers really nearby to punish him for it, it's mostly just to save the River Troll Hag, but he does actually turn around to dive in on top of him. And it's going to be Ice Power trying to make a big play on Mazdamundi. It's a little bit risky, but he needs to take the risk to try and rout this big toad. But the Shield of the Old Ones dropping means that Mazdamundi barely takes any damage on that big charge. He is pretty beat up though, and he can't easily engage a lot of the Greenskin heroes until he throws down a few more apotheosi, I don't know, on top of him. Bastiladon, Ark of Zotac 2, does drop the snakes. It's going to be hitting these orc boys. Yep, you can see they are all poisoned now, taking a good amount of damage. Banishment drops on the archers, and it's going to be a big terror rout for the Greenskins. And that's going to be a bit of a theme as we head on into the late game here. Greenskins, they do not do well in a long scrap, as they, all of their units slowly get beat up more and more, and they just start running off the battlefield all the time. This is why people usually say this matchup is Lizardmen favored, and the big win here, I think, is just not having a lot of those chariots to support in the late game. The Lizardmen are dominating on their infantry right now, and there's still a full HP Feral Stegodon running around causing havoc. Balance of power is now flipping into the Lizardmen side too, and I think this is likely going to be it, unless Ice Power manages to get a big snipe on Mazdamundi. He does have a very healthy Warzag and a River Troll Hag with some regeneration, so I don't think it's completely over by any means. But man, oh man, those chariots are off the battlefield completely now. The last chariot does get shattered, and it might even get killed off by the Pterodons. This Stegodon has nothing really to worry about. There are two chariots left though, but they won't really be able to do much against the forces here unless the big monsters actually start dying. This goblin war boss too, he's accepted his fate. He's standing his ground and gets slammed by Bastiladon in the back. Taurus warrior starting to try and get a surround on him, but he does manage to survive. We'll likely be regrouping with the forces here, but we gotta really consider, what is Ice Power going to do? Cosmo was saying the boar chariots seem a little bit OP. They did until they fought some monsters. It turns out those chariots are strong against infantry, as they were designed to be strong against, but pretty bad against Stegodons. Who would have guessed? Thankfully, due to that patch, we don't have to worry. Stegodon knocks down the River Troll Hag. Not a fear in the world. What could possibly damage him? Warzag just sort of tapping him on the tail, getting in barely any damage at all. Although it is surrounded, it is laying on the beating onto this River Troll Hag, and I would not be too surprised if we saw a terror rout from her in just a second. Once that happens, that's most of the armor-piercing damage gone for the Greenskins, and Mazdamundi comes in for the killing blow right in the back of the Troll Hag as she does get routed off. Some spiders do dive in to try and support, but these goblins, they know what's up. They see just things are going real bad here, and they run off before they even see combat. Good on you, goblins. Live to see another day. Warzag now disengaging. Doesn't really have too many targets. And although he has been spamming a lot of missiles into Mazdamundi, he's known for that apotheosis spam on top of himself, and he likely will not be dying this game. I do not really see a world where Warzag will be able to take him down. I think the strong plays from Chosen One's Archer Denial strats are going to be winning it here. Just constantly shutting them down. But the River Troll Hag, she does manage to rally right as the big boss runs off the battlefield. And will she be able to survive against some Pterodon Riders? She tries to get her charge bonus on some Skinks. It does give plus 10 leadership when you charge a unit. And it looks like she doesn't need it. She actually fights off the Pterodons and just barely keeps it together. Meanwhile, the Goblin Big Boss gets absolutely trampled by these 3 ginormous monsters. Rough time for him. River Troll Hag will be keeping it together until she takes a shot of Chameleon Skink. Sort of bullets. What are they called? Darts? Yep. And she's going to be routing off for likely the last time here. And here we go. The Greenskins squaring up. Balance of power is still in their favor, but I would say this battle is more or less over, barring some pretty severe misplays from the Lizardmen. They went completely AFK right now. War Chariots could cycle charge the infantry down. But what can Warzag do against nearly full HP Stegodon? I really doubt he'll be able to do anything. But I've been wrong before. He stays in the back line to give leadership to a lot of these forces. A nice missile onto Mazdamundi. The Shield of the Old Ones drops afterwards. You want to get that before the missile hits, but nevertheless, it's still definitely quite value as the main fight actually goes down. Warzag on the charge gets pretty nice damage onto Mazdamundi, but if we look at his HP, he's sitting at 1,400 HP. He's actually healthier than most Dwarf Lords halfway into the battle. And Ice Power knows it. He taps on out with a valiant fight, giving Chosen One a little bit of a run for his money, getting Mazdamundi down so low, but not able to actually give the death blow, causing a bit of issues. He needed Mazdamundi to rout, and then his superior mobility definitely would have won it. As for the Boar Chariots, very standard value. They were uncontested for most of the game, and they got their value back, killing Saurus and Skinks. Pretty good. GG indeed, guys. Seems like your predictions may be coming true for 10 out of 19 of you. The Goblin Big Boss actually did fairly good too. The Hero Corps did okay. But I think the Archers, they just got a bit too shut down. They just needed a tiny bit more damage on Mazdamundi that they were not able to pull through. But there we go, Chosen One. Chosen One with the first win of today. If he wins one more game, stream is over. I can go and play some Age of Empires. But a pretty nice game. Seems like Ice Power. Chosen One. No, it's Chosen One. I saw Dark Elves and I thought it was Ice Power. Chosen One going for Dark Elves, banning Batonia and Wood Elves. Wow. Wow, what a play. The Chosen One first pick, Dark Elves. Now both of these players, they do enjoy playing Dark Elves. I would say they're pretty far from the meta currently. But this feels like a pretty risky play. Ice Power would know the weaknesses of Dark Elves in and out, but also a bit of a strategic play. You take a look at it, Greenskins has been picked. Greenskins, potentially a little bit of a hard matchup for Dark Elves, already out. It's as if they got 3 bans, and Chosen One's just gonna have to figure out a way to beat their next worst matchup. I would expect probably a Tomb Kings pick here from Ice Power though. He has practiced them quite a bit. I've seen him play Tomb Kings, and he likely knows that it's a slightly favored matchup for them. But perhaps he has something else in his back pocket. Yeah, it actually is really cool to see the Orc Boar Chariots. We haven't seen them too much, at least in my own tournament series as of late. So to actually finally see them in action and to see them do fairly well, it's pretty fun. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another big ol' greenskin meta afterwards. But we'll have to see. Chosen One should get a mod status as a reward if he wins. Oh, that's true. That's true. All right. Sure. Bonus prize for Chosen One. He'll get the mod status. The great power of the moderation. But only if he wins. Only if. We will see. We will see. I have a... Oh my gosh. Ice Power going for the mirror matchup. Now this is going to be good. At Enticity, what faction do you see as the strongest right now? Obviously Vampire Coast. That's why I first picked them. In reality, though, I think Beastmen are probably one of the strongest first picks. Lizardmen is up there, for sure. I don't think they're the strongest, but definitely up there. I would wager Greenskins once the meta sort of settles. I feel like we might see them a little bit more. But everyone sort of practiced against them. That's sort of their main weakness. Yeah, the dreaded mirror. I'm actually pretty happy every time I see a mirror match. It's very different. Although I think Vampire counts mirrors still a little bit drawn out. Elf on elf action. That's right. That is right. Don't Google that, guys. Not Google that. But I don't know if I've ever seen this matchup played before. Maybe once or twice. Maybe once or twice. I do not know how it's played, and since I'm looking at Chosen One's build, I will not hazard a guess, since I might accidentally spoil things. But the real question, what do you guys think is good in this build? There's a lot of options here. There's a lot of really niche stuff that probably doesn't work. There's a lot of bread and butter that could go on, though. At Enticity, thanks for the answer. How about the weakest factions in the game? It depends on what level you're playing at. For example, dwarves are really dominant at lower levels, but at higher levels, you see them less and less. In fact, people rarely ban dwarves at all at the higher levels, which is pretty extreme. I would say in terms of a first pick and a counter pick, they're probably bottom of the barrel. Norska, too, has an extremely low win rate and an extremely low pick rate, even lower than the dwarves. So you don't see a lot of them either. And as for Vampire Coast, I personally feel like they do okay. But everyone has to say that their own main is the worst faction, right? That's the only way you can play Warhammer. Overall, though, I think if you main Coast, they're actually pretty high up. Just not a lot of people really do that too effectively, unfortunately. Yep, it is a mirror match. Oh my goodness. Nice. Tends to be whoever gets the best Scourge Runner play in the matchup, says Bowmore. Bestowing upon us a little bit of sick knowledge for this matchup. Scourge Runners are extremely meta. They're basically bolt throwers on wheels. Very good against infantry in the late game too. And I'm wondering if a bolt thrower style of play would be able to shut them down. Usually their dodging ability is quite nice. And at this level, artillery generally doesn't pay for itself. Norska is expensive with downgraded lords. Yeah. They didn't get that many nerfs though. It was like a few nerfs to skin wolves. But the main problem is that all the factions that they used to do well against all got updates. Lizardmen got an update. Wood Elves got an update. Greenskins got updated. High Elves got stuff. They used to be slightly advantaged in all these situations. But as time has gone on, the other factions have just started to outpace them a little bit. A tiny sign of power creep. But that word comes with a lot of baggage attached to it. I don't think it's a bad amount of power creep. It's sort of like inflation, right? You got a little bit, you don't got to worry too much. You have a lot of it, then you have a problem. In this case, I think it's fine. And if Norska gets a little bit of a polish, spin and polish, maybe a blessing from some Chaos Gods, they'll be back in shape in no time. Especially with Game 3 coming out. You can't unleash Game 3 upon the world without having the Chaos factions do well. Whenever you see Norska, they're losing. Unfortunately, that is actually a pretty safe bet, I would say. But here we go. Both players sort of getting set up. Ice Power figuring out what build he wants to take. We will have to see. Very little reason to play him. Yeah, Norska, there's a thing. What the? Apparently there's a typo with Chosen One's name. There is. It's Chonin One. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Over here. Who would have guessed? I completely missed it. Well, that's pretty great. But yeah, Norska, right now, if you want to play a Rush faction, you play Beastmen. Norska does not have the same tools that Beastmen have. And that's why you see them played so little nowadays, I would think. Norska could use a third legendary lord, even if it was a free LC. Honestly, the fact that you see Throg and Wulfric, it's not completely necessary, but Throg and Wulfric are starting to get a little bit outdated. Although they are still strong. Like, the boat is really good. Throg with his healing is okay. But you know, when you got Drycha, amazing combat stats, a caster, and an ability that summons dryads for free, it's hard to go up against something like that. Norska doesn't have a hard carry lord that you see with a lot of other factions. But here we go. The Dark Elf mirror match that you've all been waiting for between Chosen One and Ice Power. It's gonna be double Manticore for Chosen One. And what's this? Morathi and a single assassin. Very strange. Not too often that you see only one of them. Perhaps they wanted to take more cavalry. And indeed, we do see a lot of cavalry. 4 Dark Riders, all with shields, Doomfire Warlocks, and triple Scourge Runner. There we go. The assassin moved up to the front. Morathi with the ability kit, as you can see here. Very, very standard Soul Stealer kit. Now, there's no Dark Riders, and they could be a pretty bad idea because of the Scourge Runners, but it means that there's actually very little in the way of ranged for this Dark Elf army. For the other Dark Elf army, alright, it's pretty similar. It's pretty similar. Do the 2 Morathis have the same loadout? Let's see here. Yep, they have the exact same loadout. No, this Morathi doesn't have the passive. We found the imposter Morathi, so that's a good first step in the right direction. But overall, it's basically exactly the same. Main difference being, this one has 2 Knight Assassins. Very, very different. And the Hellebronai Dread Spears. So a little bit more infantry. And instead of the Slaanesha's Harvesters, yeah, it's gonna be those extra additions. Some more spears and an assassin. So on the left hand side, we see a little bit more cavalry. On the right hand side, we see a little bit more single entity and infantry. Now it's gonna come down mostly to, you know, all play style. The trades are dead even. The counterplay is exactly the same. Right off the bat, you have to think about how the chariots trade into each other. There's a lot of juking and dodging that will go on, and a nice overload on this left flank means that the range of these chariots, they have to get over here before they can actually support. So Chosen One actually getting a little bit of an advantage and actually pulls it off and manages to get a good few shots into this Scourge Runner chariot at the start of the battle. He's still trading effectively, but these ones instead are shooting at the Slaanesha's Harvesters, getting in a little bit of value for themselves, and Ice Power punching back with some pretty nice trades. The double assassin annihilating the single assassin. Like I said, it's about overloading on your strengths, and Morathi dives in to push back the chariots. Now these 2 assassins are out of position. They've dived in hard on this 1 Knight assassin, and he will be dropping down the Web of Shadows. A little bit premature, but he has to in case he actually does get killed off. So far, Ice Power taking some pretty nice trades right off the bat. Oh, Chosen One getting a few better trades on his chariots, and it seems like that's his main focus right now, with the Doombolt hitting the Scourge Runner chariot. It doesn't take out any models, but it looks like one will be going down in just a second, and some spears look like they will be getting run down. This is a good infantry advantage for Ice Power, but his chariots do get a little bit caught up by the cavalry. This is not great for Ice Power in this type of game. if Chosen One gets a massive chariot lead by the end of things and still has ammunition to spare, you could see a pretty brutal hit on all of the single entities from the chariots. That is, but there also is a brutal hit from the Soul Stealer, which actually clips all the Manticore's Marathi and a unit of chariots. A unit of spears here too get hit pretty hard also, but a Soul Stealer does drop and it will be chunking 2 of the Scourge Runner chariots. The AoE bug has been fixed, so this one does manage to escape. Marathi does escape too, although she does get hit by a Manticore that matters a lot less, and the counter Soul Stealer hits Marathi and a Manticore. So far we're seeing Chosen One trade slightly more efficiently, as Manticores have been able to stay at full HP, and as they engage, they actually dive in on Marathi instead of the Manticore, doing a lot of damage, but the Soul Stealers will still be able to heal it. Scourge Runner supporting in this fight, whereas Chosen One is supporting the left flank instead. Doombolt hits the Slaanesha's Harvesters, oh, but it whiffs! It whiffs, does absolutely no damage, only killing a single model, and we're seeing Chosen One coming out slightly ahead in the single entity game. He's chased off one of the Manticores, completely annihilated it with the volley from Scourge Runner fire. The assassins are getting shut down, and this Manticore plus Marathi, they're all still at good HP, but the Web of Shadows, it drops on all of the cavalry. Ice Power gets the fattest Web of Shadows you could possibly imagine, and just completely chunks down these forces here. Just gets all of the cavalry, completely annihilates them. I just remembered my sound is turned way down, but there you go. The chariots getting completely annihilated. The passive triggers for both players, and Marathi is actually quite low on HP now. If you look at Marathi for Ice Power, she's actually nowhere to be seen, chasing off a Manticore right now, which could actually turn out quite badly, since this Manticore actually gets killed off by Marathi participating in the main fight. But that huge dive on the assassins really did not go well. Another Web of Shadows too drops in on Marathi, and it looks like Ice Power might be able to come back in this game with that rather big misplay from Chosen One, grouping up with all of his forces. I do not want to see the Web of Shadows. Nah, I'm kidding. I really want to see the Web of Shadows value after this game, because that was absolutely devastating. Slaanesha's Harvester still doing fairly well for themselves. They've been able to stick on the battlefield for most of the fight. I don't think they've even gone routed off yet, and a big charge on the back of the Dark Riders works out pretty well for them. I think there may still be another Web of Shadows here on the Assassins. Probably not, they're very low on HP, and it depends on how well Marathi does here. Oh, actually it doesn't matter though, because army losses actually kicks in due to all the damage that has been taken, and the battle just straight up ends right there. Let's take a look. Yep, that's right. That seems about right. And over here, yep, that's about right. If you haven't seen the speedrun challenges that I've played on Human Boys tournaments, you might not be too familiar with how strong Web of Shadows is when it hits multiple targets. But yeah, this is about what you expect when you get the best hits possible. And man, did they pay for themselves. Marathi doing only decently. She actually traded pretty badly early on, and she had a rough time versus Marathi. As for this assassin, the Web of Shadows procced a little bit too early. Ice Power focusing him down early, definitely a good choice. And in the end, it really just came down to that. Chariots traded decently in the early game, but you have to be really careful about those mid-game plays. In a matchup like this with so many AoEs, that is something you gotta keep an eye out for. And Ice Power just managing to pull it back in the late game. So that's 1-1 for both players now. Ice Power is going for the pick 3 now. And we'll get a juicy ace match in the finals of the ladder tournament. Now, for those of you that don't know, the tournament today is running off the back of my glorious ranked ladder. See here? That's not it. That's my pick 3 bot. Where is my ranked ladder thing? Let's see here. Where is it at? I think it's in this folder. Man, I have so many pictures. There we go. The autumn season. Oh, that's a big Durthu. That's a huge Durthu. Let's fix it up. Man, this is the most professional thing I've ever done. I've never done anything more professional in my life. There we go. The autumn season of the ranked ladder. We finally got there. Yeah. It's going to be resetting tonight, actually, where all the ELO will be reset, but saved for future viewing. And you can climb the ladder from bronze all the way to masters. There's an unranked league too early on. It's pretty great. So if you're at all interested in getting into multiplayer, this is a really nice way to dive in because we actually have ELO based matchmaking, unlike the quick battle system. There's rules too, so you don't have to worry about getting cheese in quick battles. It's a good old dandy time. But enough shilling out of the way. Go ahead and actually go on to some analysis. It looks like the 3 factions haven't been picked yet, so we'll chill in chat. That's right, Zyphos. Everything resets tomorrow. That's right. All right, here we go. We're doing this again. But yeah, so I will be saving everyone's old ELO. Can still view it as soon as I finish that feature. But yeah, it's going to get a full-on reset that we have purely active players in the system. And yeah, it should be good. There's going to be a whole array of new tournaments going on, and it's actually going to be the streamer weekend this weekend, where everyone's going to be diving on in from just a ton of different streamers that will be participating, bringing new players onto the ladder, and hopefully giving a nice boost to that player base. So that, I don't know what I was doing there. Nice boost to the player base so that we can really capitalize on the matchmaking systems. Should be really exciting. Yeah, I really hope that I can that we can get that player base up, because you know we still have at least like 3, 4, 5 months of Warhammer 2, so might as well make sure that multiplayer system gets nice and polished early. Is there a tin or stone level for you? You know, I was thinking Driftwood League. We got that. We got let's see here. We got Dust League for Zyphos. Lots of good stuff. And the cavalry fixes. I know everything is lining up perfectly. It's gonna be great. The irony about the ladder is that you're still undefeated and then proceed to lose to Call Harmon in the first round. Yeah, that is true. For the highest levels, it's a little bit harder to find a super even matchup. But yeah, that's pretty great. But hey, your score is still untarnished. Whatever happens here does not affect your score on the ladder, so yeah. That's right. Dust League. Zyphos dodging good players confirmed. You know, maybe Zyphos just, he waits to queue up into bronze players. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, that is how Zyphos plays. I think his win rate actually is like 25 or something. It could even be higher now. 25 wins back to back. That's enough to win multiple tourneys, especially with how often Ice Power actually plays on the ladder. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, Loopy, what are you doing in Platinum? How? Shame on you. Shame on you bringing it onto the ODM clan. To be merely in Platinum, you better climb up. New ladder is starting though, so it will be a lot easier to climb into different ranks, since for a while now we've had people at the highest elo sort of just sitting there and not playing too much. So once everything resets, you'll be able to very nicely find out how you stack up at different tiers. You played like 3 games. I assume you won 3 games then, if you're going to be up at that point. Zyphos, you're going to try Age of Empires 4 right now? Oh, yes. Zyphos, we gotta play it. As soon as I get access to it, we gotta play some matches. It's too hyped to pass up, man. I don't know if I'm actually in yet, though, which is a little bit worrying. I'll have to look into it. Yes, Age of Empires 4. As soon as I'm able to play it, I will be streaming it. If it's today or tomorrow, that is the plan, guys. Oh man, for those of you unaware, I played a lot of StarCraft back in the day. Not that much, but I got to Masters League. So I feel like I got some pretty good RTS experience. I've played a lot of competitive Warhammer, which has set me up to really know how to learn these types of games quickly and get the practice in and training and so on. So I feel like I have the mindset to do decently in Age of Empires, but we'll have to see. There's only one way to find out. And it's this weekend! Oh, it's so exciting! Oh man, you've never played Age of Empires? Yeah, me neither, basically. I only have the slightest amount of experience. Oh yeah, that's gonna be sick, man. That's gonna be sick. Regrets, says Loopy. Yeah. By the way, the 3 picks, it's gonna be Tomb Kings, Chaos, and Beastmen. Banning the vampire counts. If you think you have a good counter pick, throw them in. Throw them in. Age of 4 looks quite meh to you, says Lotus Moon. Looks like, let's see, path-related Age of Mythology. It looks pretty similar to AoE 2, I would say. Just sort of, amped up a bit, a tiny bit polished. For me, graphics have never really tickled my fancy for games. I play a lot of indie games too. I'm all in for the gameplay. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on in particular. AoE 2 was the best back in the days. It's actually the best right now. AoE 2 community and its multiplayer is actually going quite strong, surprisingly enough. Oh, Lotus Moon, not optimistic. I gotta say, very on brand. You don't have high hopes for the new game mode in Warhammer 3. Lotus Moon, are you hyped about anything? How about Cathay? Cathay's pretty cool. Tzinch? Does anything make you excited? Please. Please, I just want to see you happy. Can't wait to do some farming in the new AoE 4. Yeah, it's gonna be sick. It's gonna be absolutely amazing. Way more like Age of Mythology than AoE 2. I'm talking gameplay wise. It's the only thing cheering you up in a week of I got no idea what that is. He doesn't like Cathay. Oof. Big oof. Big oof. So in the meantime, Chosen One. Struggling to find a counter pick to Ice Power's 3 factions. That's pretty surprising. I feel like maybe a Beastmen pick is pretty good. Beastmen ban Beastmen. The classic. Cathay looks trash. Tzinch looks nice. Alright, I'll take it. I'll take it looks nice. By the way, anyone hyped about Age of Empires 4? Turin is streaming it right now. And I might even get to play against them a bit later. So, something to look forward to, guys. For sure. Oh, Diablo 2 Resurrected. Yeah, that's pretty good. I never got into it. I was more of a Champions of Norath fan. If you know what Champions of Norath is, I'd be tempted to give you the moderator role right away. But, probably not. You like Cathay except for the big giant? Okay. Yeah, a lot of people in ODM aren't fan of single entities. It sort of makes sense. Chosen One saying they see 2 options, no 3. Beastmen Mirror, Chaos Mirror, or a High Elf vs Chaos game. All of which sounds pretty interesting, I gotta say. Beastmen Mirror would be the funniest thing. Chaos Mirror, one I haven't seen very often. And High Elves vs Chaos. A little bit sketchy. I'd be surprised if Chosen One actually goes for that. You don't mind single entity monsters, but it's ugly. Wow, Loopy with the hot takes. Not a fan of the Clay Warriors? Come on. They're not that bad. I sort of like them. They got an interesting aesthetic for sure. Diablo 2 Resurrected is hype. Let me present you Warcraft 3 Remastered. Oh god. Oh jeez. Oh. Oh no. That hits way too hard, man. That hits way too hard. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Yeah. Yep. Oh man, Blizzard, how the mighty have fallen. Wait till they get wounded. Chaff meta incoming. Ah yes, Warhammer 3 with the wound mechanic. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I feel like it might not have that much of an impact because single entities rely on cycle charging pretty often to do their damage. I guess the reduction in speed is nice though. Cathay looks amazing, what are you saying? Oh man, someone's gonna get banned. Someone's gonna removed from ODM very soon. Firework balloons look so bad with Cathay. Man, Lotus Moon. Dang. Dang. Oh my gosh, and you just keep going. You just lay it on thick. Lore Master of Sotek is just appalled in chat. I know, man. I'm used to it though. I've been in ODM for a while now, so I know what to expect. But yeah, we got some strong opinions here. Apparently, Cathay is the oh, what's it called? What's that? What's that paste? What's that like Australian black pasty thing? It starts with like a V. Vermite, I think. It's the Vermite of Warhammer 3. Oh, I feel like Vermite is slightly off. But you know what I mean. Marmite, there you go. Vegemite, I merged the two. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, look at that. Yeah, there you go. Marmite and Vegemite. I can't believe that happened. My mind just really mixed it up. Apparently it tastes sort of like fish sauce in Asian cuisine. So I feel like I would enjoy it. Not Marmite. How dare you? Oh man, I sparked something in chat. Don't know what, but going crazy. Loopy say everything in Cathay looks good, but the Sentinel is gross. Alright. To each their own. Lotus Moon. Thing is, they're trying to do 3K things? Maybe. Like, you know, it comes with the same inspiration. It's hard not to look similar. You've had Vegemite and were disgusted, says Neardem. Oh man. It has an acquired taste. Yeah, so I've heard. Anyone here like durian though? I hate durian. You know, durian is like... you know, I haven't eaten it in a while, so I guess it's sort of like, you know, it has a creamy sort of flavor. But like, creamy fruit. What a strange thing that exists in this world. I've never heard of Bovril. You also don't like that they have basically Giselles. That is true, but it lines up with the lore, folks, right? Skaven learned a lot from Cathay, so they sort of had to add it in some way or another. I hope they do make it sort of different from the usual Giselles. Otherwise, you know, you sort of get too many Skaven vibes. Bovril was nice. I still have no idea what it is. Is it like a paste, a sauce? You've only had bad durian. Okay. I brought up the Marmite Vegemite debate. See, I thought they were the same thing. And that's probably gonna just light some flames in chat, just even mentioning that. But, you know, in general culture, what's the difference? Doesn't AoE 4 look like Spellforce 3 graphics-wise? I've never played that game, so I wouldn't know. By the way, the matchup that we're seeing today, the much less important finals, High Elves versus Chaos. Now, High Elves are not that advantaged versus Chaos, I don't think. So I feel like High Elves are a bit on the back foot here. Chosen One might have a bit more practice, though, so we'll see. That folks saying durian is awful. Her girlfriend loves it, though. Okay, yeah. It's a love or hate type of relationship. Have you had durian cake before? Anyone in chat? Durian cake is an experience. It's like cake, but worse. I prefer my sweets actually. I like my food really sweet and really salty. So I don't really like the extra fragrances that durian give. Oh yeah, Lotus Moon he's on a rampage every day. Yeah, I've come to expect it every time I stream. Your girlfriend is an insane durian stan. I assume that means they'll love it. Yeah, AoE graphics. It's like a little bit sketched, but come on, you know, if you enjoy your indie games like Hollow Knight and so on, some graphics that are like that are completely fine. People says they don't like. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, the classic take, yeah. You if you've had a good durian, your mind will be blown. Your tastes will be changed. I could sort of see it, but I feel like, you know, a good durian is just the same as a normal one, but stronger. I feel like it doesn't change its flavor profile at all. Yeah, it's cake but worse. That's the only way to describe it. You like Tzinch a lot? Was thinking they will totally stuff it up, but they did not. Hey, a lot of people don't like the look of the Tzinch warriors though. I'm fine with it either way, personally. What format is the final? It's best of 3. Why? Because we have a limited time here on weekdays, and we want to make sure our players are finishing the tournaments before midnight. I say that, but it is midnight in a lot of places right now, so hopefully this does end sooner rather than later. Chosen One has his army ready. Man, this is great. I should bring up these controversial topics every time our players are setting up their armies. It's a great way to just burn some time. Apparently. Battle for Middle-earth remake looks superb. That's good to hear. But yes, this is a best of 3. Nice, fun, and short format. I like to keep my tournaments sort of like stepping stone tournaments for the big leagues. You know, turns ECLs, HWs, qualifiers. Yeah, pretty good. Looking promising, cool. Lotus Moon hoping they don't get shut down by copyright claims. Oh no. You don't know what Bovril is either? Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of foods out there, a lot of unknowns. I like to stick pretty classic though. My palate is terrible. You know, I'll eat a hamburger, a hot dog on a stick. I'm very Americanized, sadly, much to the dismay of my family. But here we go. We finally get to the final match of today. It's going to be the High Elves versus the Chaos, Chosen One, sporting the ODM clan tag against XMT's Ice Power. Coming in on the red side with the Chaos. We'll cover Chaos first this time. It's going to be against the High Elves, bringing in a double chariot style of play. Mass great weapons. Chaos Marauder great weapons into the sunset. Chaos Warrior great weapons into the sunset. And a couple Marauder Horse Masters. Just one, actually, and 2 Horsemen to round it out. The Hero Core, Sorcerer of Metal, Sigvald, and a Deathcaster with just Spirit Leech. So Spirit Leech and good old Final Transmutation coming in for today. A little bit of a worry of having the caster sniped out. That's why we see 2 of them. And there is a 4th Horseman. So perfectly fitting on the thematic side with a single Chaos Warhound. Now this build doesn't have a lot of anti-kite in it. No Hell Cannon, only 4 horsemen, and a single unit of dogs. But cavalry beware, they're gonna die to counter charges from the great weapons. For Chosen One, we see a Shadow Warrior style of play, times 3, 2 Dragon Princes, a favorite in ODM, very elite High Elf cavalry, with a very elite front line to boot. Warriors of Trace, Swordmasters of Hoeth, and some spears in the back. Now these guys will still lose very hard to the Marauders, and it's going to be up to Chosen One to kite this force down until they're weak enough to get ground up by the very elite High Elf forces here. Alariel the Radiant in the air also. She's going to be healing up these Dragon Princes. But if I were the High Elves, I'd be a tiny bit worried here. We will have to see. Awesome, saying can never root for Sigvald. I think a lot of people would back you up there. But here we go, the battle begins. Shadow Warriors getting in their first volleys off against the Chaos Warriors, getting in a little bit of damage, just a tiny bit of dodging, but they still take a rather nasty hit on top of themselves. Another volley does loose. 50% of the shots are usually dodged when you pull back. So pretty nice play from Ice Power to kick off the battle. Meanwhile, Dragon Princes sort of dancing back and forth. It looks like they are ready to protect the Shadow Warriors at all costs, and they will be able to, for they are the most elite cavalry here in the battle currently. They'll be able to ward off these two chariots like no one's business. The main problem is this going to be enough ammunition for the Shadow Warriors? I feel like probably not, but we'll have to see. There are a lot of Chaos Warriors here too, but if they do manage to grind down all the Chaos Marauders, it means that the Dragon Princes have much better targets here going on into the late game. That's true, Sigvald is a raid boss, and he is going to be quite difficult to actually take down in this battle. We'll have to see how the High Elves actually manage that in this game. Seems like they don't have too many options, and mostly they're going to rely on the Dragon Prince surround with a bit of Alariel cycle charge to actually take him out. The battle looks like the High Elves, they have a fairly nice retreat route. They're going to be cycling over here. These warriors on the left-hand flank won't really be able to catch up to the forces here very easily, so I think the High Elves will be able to use up all of their ammunition here at the very least. They're not wasting any of it on the Marauder Horsemen too much either, unless, you know, they're easy pickings, in which case they will actually be able to get a lot of value. But generally, if they're dodging, you don't want to lose too much ammunition into them, as they're constant dodging. It can be quite brutal and actually quite ammunition draining for these poor guys. Solid charge on the Marauder Great Weapons does land too. Nice hammer and anvil. What Chosen One actually did was land a Lariel here and then send in the charge of Dragon Princes. Greatly hindered the counter charge of these warriors, and that actually meant that the Dragon Princes didn't take too much damage. Yeah, so many Great Weapon Infantry indeed. They are just very, very numerous here. But the High Elves definitely have the mobility advantage with these Dragon Princes. There's not a lot that these Marauder Horsemen are going to be able to do here. Now the pivoting continues. Marauder Horsemen going in for a charge. Swordmasters slam into the Marauders, and man, they get annihilated. Absolutely devastated. And then a pull away here. I would expect a heal to drop in just a second. Chariots do get caught up by these Dragon Princes. They're going to be getting in some pretty nice damage, and the Swordmasters, they do have to stay in combat. That gets a little bit scary for these guys. They're very elite and they don't want to take too much damage, but man, do they grind down Marauders like no one's business. They still take a bit of damage though and will be going down to about half HP. White Lions do engage onto these Chaos Marauders, but you can see Chosen One is taking a lot of pretty good fights here. He's been able to rout off a lot of these guys, but Ice Power strikes back with a humongous Final Transmutation upgraded onto the Dragon Princes. They're down to 26 models, and that is a huge play. It greatly just weakens the High Elf mobility. And in the late game, if the Dragon Princes go down, these chariots are going to be able to clean up the rest of the battlefield along with Sigvald. And oh man, a really nice charge into the Swordmasters of Hoeth actually bring them down to nearly routing. Still though, a lot of the warrior great weapons have gone down over the course of the battle. The Shadow Warriors are fairly low on ammunition, so they might not be too much of a threat soon, and then the Marauder Horsemen will begin coming into play. With their very nice ammunition, they'll likely be able to start getting a lot of value on the cavalry. Instead though, actually opting for a charge on one of the Shadow Warriors, I feel like this is a little bit of a misplay. Not too bad, but it means that these Marauder Horsemen will be getting routed off by the Dragon Princes. As for the Chaos Infantry, most of them are getting routed off. Swordmasters are more or less gone, but the Chariots are still in good health. And not to forget either, Sigvald. Sigvald's gonna be pretty scary. Yes, the Marauder Horsemen are at half ammunition, but they actually do have quite a few shots left. 10 on each of them means you have 30 volleys of Marauder Horsemen ammunition on here. That's enough to kill the Dragon Princes, It's enough to kill the White Lions. It's enough to kill a L'Oreal. So I would say it's pretty threatening for sure. Dragon Princes, though, they do slam into these Chaos Warriors, taking a good amount of damage. And they do still have a pretty good presence on the battlefield. About 53 Dragon Princes left currently. Enough to get some pretty nice cycle charges. And with some healing from a L'Oreal, this one unit at 31 models, they're going to be pretty good. No Hearts of Averlorn yet either, as stated by chat. And it seems like one is going to be dropping right here on top of these guys. And look at that. Some very nice healing for them. Now, the Marauder Horsemen, they'll be getting in their damage. The Chaos Infantry, there's still a single unit of healthy Warrior Great Weapons and 2 fairly beat up Marauders. A couple more in the background. And for the High Elf Infantry, it's just a couple White Lines of Trace and some Shadow Warriors. Overall, I would say the High Elves are in a pretty bad position right now. Without a demanding advantage, there's just not a lot to really kill Sigvald, but we'll have to see how well this main engagement goes. I think if the Dragon Princes manage to get a mass rout on the Warriors here, we could see the tide of battle shifting. At the moment, though, it's very much in the favor of Chaos, Sigvald carrying that balance of power quite heavily. Dragon Princes do push back the chariots, and one of them lines up to start punishing the infantry. They're going to be going in for the charge. Alariel routes off one of the sorcerers, and a pretty big play for the High Elves right now. The Spirit Leech drops, though, on these Dragon Princes, and they're going to be going down quite hard. Their value draining quite significantly. But look at that. The Chaos Warriors and Marauders are routing off. There is still the Warrior Great Weapons actually do hold, though, which is going to be pretty scary for the High Elves. Still, though, cycle charging will be quite scary. Alariel in good health will be able to do well, and the vengeance of the Marauder Horsemen will eventually run out. They did manage to beat down the White Lions of Trace, unfortunately, but once their ammunition is gone, these Dragon Princes will be able to dominate the battlefield once again, especially with a relatively low amount of great weapons left. I think these Dragon Princes are going to be the saving grace of the High Elves today. But another Spirit Leech does drop. They're going to be dropping to about 20 models now. And that's pretty bad. 20 models is getting to the point where they are starting to really lose effectiveness on their charges. They're going to have a lot less damage in general. But before that all goes down, they do nail these Warrior Great Weapons. And they're looking to get them to rout off. Alariel, with her Fear Aura on an Eagle, will be able to do well. She does kill off the Dragon. She routs off the Chaos Sorcerer of Death. And the Marauder Great Weapons are down. Which means there are actually very little options for Ice Power to kill off these Dragon Princes right now. He only has Marauder Horsemen at very low ammunition. And with the healing, there's still 10 Dragon Princes here. I think they'll actually be able to fight fairly well here. Of course, Sigvald is definitely still a beast, and Sigvald will have the support of the rest of his army here. So it's not like the Dragon Princes will be able to easily clean up things by any means, but they are still a fairly good threat on the battlefield. Some spears in the center are going to be holding against chariots too, and the Dragon Princes come down the hill to try and support their High Elf brethren, charging into the backs of the chariots, and Sigvald struggling to keep up, as he usually does against the more mobile forces. And look at that, the entire Chaos army having to run away from the Dragon Princes, but perhaps it was a bait, as the Warhounds charge in. The horsemen slam into the back, and the chariots could even engage too. Oh, but the counterplay. The Star of Averlorn dropping on these Dragon Princes. I'll be keeping them in the fight for quite a while, but it seems like they will still rout nonetheless. A nice bait from Ice Power here, catching out the Dragon Princes as they moved in. And that's actually going to be really rough for Chosen One, I think. He does still have 10 Dragon Princes, but I don't think they fare very well against this many Hounds and Marauder Horsemen. There are a couple Spears still alive, but Sigvald will definitely be able to deal with them. And Alariel's heal cap has finally arrived. Looking like Sigvald very likely will be able to close out the game here. There was a lot of really nice kiting for the forces of the High Elves, but honestly, I don't think anything can really kill this bad boy, aside from very extreme RNG. Yeah, Larry did kill the casters, but now the mobility of the high elves just getting completely decimated due to that magic. I think the overcast final transmutation and all those soul stealers really did burn down these dragon princes. Sigvald, he dives on into the fight, and look at that balance of power very easily in the favor of chaos now. There's barely any infantry left, and it's just a L'Oreal. The hounds decide to spare her, not actually chasing her down, charging into the backs of the infantry instead. Very much a strong play, as it means that Alariel will no longer be able to cycle charge, which is the biggest threat for Sigvald. Dragon Princes do return at barely any HP. They slam into the Marauder Horsemen, and they actually rout off the dogs, surprisingly enough. Actually, these Dragon Princes at 250 health, they annihilated those remnants of cavalry, but I don't think it's going to be enough. The horsemen barely able to chase them off and grind them down to only a few models left. And the L'Oreal gets absolutely demolished by Sigvald. With a good few stabs, ice power manages to finish off the game. There was some really nice Dragon Prince play here today, but sadly they weren't able to really pull it off. Although the great weapons are usually the meme to kill the cavalry, I think in this game it was mostly just the sorcerers and the magic that really ground them down. Of course, the cavalry, this is not the patch to be cycle charging, and they really got beat down there. The poison hounds actually getting really good value too, chasing off and charging into the backs of the dragon princes was quite good. And actually the shadow warriors not really paying for themselves. I think Ice Power did a really good job dodging there too. Still though, for Chosen One, it was a really nice build. I think it actually did get fairly close by the end of things, but in the end, the Dragon Princes not able to close out the game. Ice Power, frequent winner of these tournaments, wins again, coming out on top here, taking out multiple ODM members today. I think I'm gonna be winning it all. So Ice Power, if you're watching on the stream, you will be getting your prize in just a moment, as soon as I take a quick second to rest up for a moment. For those of you who are interested in qualifying for these tournaments yourself, you can join the Discord down below to play in the new autumn season for the tournament. We're revitalizing the multiplayer ladder, and it's going to be seeing a lot of support in the upcoming weeks. So that is everything for today. We'll be closing it off, but before we do, special thanks to the sponsors for today's tournament, our wonderful Patreon supporters that you can see down below in the bottom left corner. Red Wedding Planner and Romac Corral sponsoring 2 bonus tournaments that will be coming in next month, and Biblington coming in with a generous support for the ladder as a whole. So I think that's about everything I needed to cover. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in to watch, and I will see you next time.